The slap echoes before the choice that will change everything. When powerful rancher Caleb Turner demands a wife, everyone expects him to choose the beloved elder sister. Instead, he points at Lin Mei, the unwanted Chinese daughter treated like dirt in her own home. Her father's rage explodes. Her sister's shock turns venomous. But Lin Mei, tired of being invisible, does the unthinkable. She says yes. This is the story of a woman who walked into hell to escape being nothing and discovered she was capable of burning the whole world down. Stay until the end. Like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The sound of her father's hand meeting her face was louder than Lin Mei expected. Sharp, clean, the kind of sound that makes a room go silent. She didn't cry out, didn't stumble back. She just stood there in the cramped parlor of their shabby house on the edge of town, tasting copper on her tongue, feeling the heat bloom across her left cheek. Her father's chest heaved like he'd been running. His face was red, twisted with something between fury and shame. "You dare?" he hissed in Cantonese. "You dare make a fool of this family?" Lin Mei kept her eyes down. Not out of respect. She'd lost that for him years ago. But because if she looked at him now, she might say something that would earn her worse than a slap. Her hands, rough from years of washing other people's laundry, hung at her sides. She could still feel the dampness from the tub she'd been scrubbing at when her father had burst in, dragging her out to the parlor where her mother and sister waited. Where he waited. Caleb Turner stood near the door, hat in his hands, expression unreadable. He was a big man, not fat, but solid in the way that came from years of ranch work. His face was weathered, lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun. He was maybe 35, which made him nearly twice Lin Mei's age. His clothes were clean but worn, the kind of practical denim and cotton that spoke of a man who worked his own land. He'd come to their house an hour ago, asked to speak with Lin Mei's father. The conversation had been brief, conducted in halting English on her father's part, smooth and direct on Turner's. He wanted a wife. He was willing to pay. Everyone had assumed he meant Mei Ling, Lin Mei's older sister. Mei Ling was beautiful in the way that made men stupid. Delicate features, smooth hands, a smile that could make you forget she had the warmth of a snake. She'd been perched on the settee since Turner arrived, angled just right so the afternoon light caught her profile. She'd poured tea with graceful movements, laughed softly at nothing, played her part perfectly. But when Turner had finally spoken his choice, he hadn't looked at Mei Ling at all. "The younger one," he'd said, nodding toward Lin Mei. "Her." The room had frozen. Lin Mei, who'd been standing in the corner, where she always stood, where she was supposed to stay invisible, had felt every eye turn toward her. Mei Ling's mouth had fallen open. Their mother had gone pale. And their father. That's when he'd crossed the room and struck her. "She is nothing," her father spat now, switching to English so Turner would understand. "No education, no grace. She works like a peasant. You want a wife, you take Mei Ling. Beautiful, good family training. This one," he gestured at Lin Mei with disgust. "This one is worthless." Lin Mei felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. It had broken years ago. Every time her father looked through her, every time her mother sighed like Lin Mei's existence was a burden, every time Mei Ling smiled that poisonous smile and said something cutting while everyone laughed. No, this was different. This was something settling into place. She lifted her head, met her father's eyes. "I accept," she said in English, clear, firm. Her father's face went purple. "You accept? You have no right to—" "She's of age," Turner cut in. His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped her father cold. "And I'm asking her, not you. Miss Lin, I'll ask you direct. Will you marry me?" This was insane. Lin Mei knew that. This man was a stranger. She knew almost nothing about him except that he owned a ranch somewhere west of town, that he'd lost his wife 2 years back, that he had a reputation for being fair but hard. Marrying him meant leaving the only world she knew, however miserable it was. But staying? She looked at her sister. Mei Ling's face had gone from shock to something colder, harder. There was hate in those pretty eyes now, pure and simple. If Lin Mei stayed, if she refused Turner and he left, Mei Ling would make her pay for this humiliation. And her parents, they'd already shown what they thought she was worth. Yes, Lin Mei said, turning back to Turner. I'll marry you. No! Her father surged forward, but Turner stepped between them, one hand raised. That's settled then, Turner said calmly. We'll marry tomorrow. I'll send a wagon for her things. She has nothing, her father shouted. No dowry, no... Don't need one. Turner's eyes were hard now, fixed on her father. I asked for a wife who could work. You just confirmed she can. That's all I need. He turned to Lin Mei, and for a brief moment, something that might have been sympathy flickered in his expression. Pack what you want to bring. Anything that's yours. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded far too final. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lin Mei didn't wait for her father to recover. She turned and walked toward the narrow stairs that led to the attic room she shared with her sister. Behind her, she heard her mother start to cry. Not for Lin Mei, but for the embarrassment, the disruption to their plans. Heard her father cursing in Cantonese, slamming his fist against the wall. Heard Mei Ling's voice, sweet as honey, deadly as arsenic. Let her go. Good riddance. Lin Mei's room was barely large enough for the thin mattress on the floor and the single trunk that held everything she owned. The ceiling sloped so sharply she couldn't stand up straight except right in the center. In winter, frost formed on the inside of the walls. In summer, it was an oven. She knelt beside the trunk, opening it with hands that shook just slightly. Not much inside. 2 other dresses, both as faded and patched as the one she wore. Undergarments she'd sewn herself from scraps. A pair of shoes with soles she'd replaced 3 times. A small cloth bundle that held her mother's jade bracelet. The only thing of value she owned, given to her by her grandmother before she died. Her mother had tried to take it back a dozen times. Lin Mei had hidden it, kept it secret. She packed quickly, mechanically. She could hear voices downstairs, sharp and angry. Her father was raging about honor, about respect. Her mother was calculating, already trying to figure out how to salvage Mei Ling's prospects. Mei Ling herself was silent, which was somehow worse than if she'd been screaming. Lin Mei rolled up the thin blanket from her mattress. It was hers. She'd bought it herself with money earned from taking in extra washing. She was folding it when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Mei Ling appeared in the doorway, having to duck to fit under the sloped ceiling. She was still beautiful, but the careful mask had dropped. What Lin Mei saw now was raw fury. You think you're clever, Mei Ling said, her voice low and venomous. You think you've won something. Lin Mei didn't answer. She closed the trunk, fastened the leather straps. He'll see what you are, Mei Ling continued, stepping into the tiny space. A nothing, a peasant with dirty hands and no grace. He'll regret choosing you. He'll wish he'd taken me instead. Lin Mei stood, meeting her sister's eyes. They'd shared this room for 18 years. Mei Ling had never once helped her when she was sick, had never shared food when Lin Mei went hungry so the valuable daughter could eat, had stepped on her, over her, through her, like she was furniture. Maybe, Lin Mei said quietly, but at least I'll be gone from here. She picked up the trunk. It wasn't heavy. Her whole life fit in one box light enough to carry with both hands. She moved toward the door, and Mei Ling had to step back to let her pass. You'll fail, Mei Ling hissed as Lin Mei started down the stairs. You'll break. And when you do, don't come crawling back here. Lin Mei didn't respond. She descended the stairs, trunk in hand, and walked through the parlor where her parents still argued. Neither of them looked at her. She was already gone to them, already erased. She set the trunk by the front door and went to the small lean-to out back where she kept her washing tubs. Her hands, her real tools. She looked at them in the fading light, scarred knuckles, calluses, nails she couldn't keep clean no matter how hard she scrubbed. Her father had called her a peasant like it was an insult, but these hands had fed her when her family wouldn't. These hands had earned her the few coins she'd saved, hidden in the lining of the trunk. These hands were stronger than Mei Ling's delicate fingers would ever be. She spent the night on the floor beside her trunk. No one came to say goodbye. No one asked if she was certain. When dawn came, gray and cold, she heard the rattle of a wagon outside. Turner had sent a man named Chen, another Chinese worker, she realized with some surprise. He was middle-aged, weathered, and he didn't ask questions, just loaded her trunk onto the wagon bed and helped her up onto the seat beside him. As they pulled away, Lin Mei looked back once. The house was silent. No one stood in the doorway. No one waved. She turned forward and didn't look back again. The journey to Turner's ranch took most of the day. Chen didn't talk much, but he wasn't unkind. He offered her water from a canteen, pointed out landmarks as they passed. The land gradually changed from the scrubby outskirts of town to rolling hills, then to wider stretches of grassland dotted with cattle. "Mr. Turner's land starts here," Chen said, gesturing to a fence line. 20,000 acres. Maybe more now. He keeps buying. Lin Mei stared. She'd never conceived of that much space belonging to one person. "How many workers?" she asked. 30, maybe. Some full-time, some seasonal, maybe 10 Chinese, rest white or Mexican. Chen glanced at her. "Mr. Turner don't care where you're from if you work hard. But his father—" He trailed off, shook his head. "Old man's different." That was the first warning, though Lin Mei didn't fully understand it yet. The ranch house came into view as the sun started to sink. A sprawling structure of wood and stone, 2 stories, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Outbuildings clustered nearby, barns, bunkhouses, storage sheds. It looked solid, permanent, nothing like the shabby house she'd left behind. Chen pulled the wagon up to the front porch. Before Lin Mei could climb down, the door opened and Turner stepped out. He looked the same as yesterday, solid, practical, unreadable. "Miss Lin," he said with a nod. Then to Chen, "Take her things to the west bedroom upstairs. Tell Mrs. Kowalski to prepare it." Chen nodded and began unloading the trunk. Turner offered his hand to help Lin Mei down. She hesitated. She wasn't used to anyone offering her help, then took it. His grip was calloused, firm but not crushing. "We'll marry tomorrow morning," he said as her feet touched the ground. "Judge is coming out from town. In the meantime, I'll show you around." Lin Mei nodded. Words felt stuck in her throat. This was real now, terrifyingly real. Turner led her inside. The house was bigger than it looked from outside, but not fancy. The furniture was well made but worn. The floors were clean but scuffed. It felt lived in, used. A working house, not a showpiece. "Kitchen's through there," Turner said, pointing. "Mrs. Kowalski does most of the cooking for the house, but she's getting older, needs help. Dining room connects, parlor's to the right, office is mine. You're welcome in it if you need something, but I keep the ranch accounts there." He led her up the stairs. The second floor had 4 bedrooms. He pointed to one at the end of the hall. "That was my wife's room. Still has her things. I keep meaning to clear it out." There was something in his voice, not grief exactly, but a weariness. He moved on quickly. "This one's yours," he said, opening a door to reveal a medium-sized room with a bed, a dresser, a washstand, and a window overlooking the eastern pastures. "For now. After we marry, we'll see how things go." Lin Mei understood what he wasn't saying, separate bedrooms until she was ready, or maybe forever. She wasn't sure if that was kindness or indifference. "Why did you choose me?" The question came out before she could stop it. Turner was quiet for a moment, leaning against the doorframe. "You want the honest answer?" "Yes. I need a wife who can work," he said bluntly. "Not someone to decorate my arm at town functions. This ranch takes everything I've got. I needed someone who understood that. Someone who wouldn't break when things got hard." He looked at her directly. "Your hands told me everything I needed to know. So did the way you stood in that corner, like you'd learned to be invisible. I figured you'd learn to survive. That's worth more than pretty manners." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even particularly kind. But it was honest, and Lin Mei found herself respecting that more than empty flattery. "I can work," she said. "Good." He pushed off the doorframe. "Get settled. Dinner's at 6. I'll introduce you to my father then." He left her there and Lin Mei sank onto the edge of the bed. It was softer than anything she'd ever slept on. The room was warm, clean, with space enough to move. Through the window, she could see the land stretching out forever, golden in the late afternoon light. She should have felt relieved, grateful even. Instead, she felt terrified. Dinner was a disaster. Lin Mei came downstairs at 6, wearing her best dress, which wasn't saying much. She'd tried to tame her hair, wash her face, make herself presentable. But when she entered the dining room and saw the old man sitting at the head of the table, she knew immediately that nothing she wore would matter. Elijah Turner was maybe 70, but he held himself like he was carved from iron. White hair, hard eyes, a jaw that looked like it had never softened for anyone. He was in a wheeled chair. Chen had pushed him to the table, but he radiated authority anyway. This was a man used to being obeyed. "So," he said, not bothering with greetings, "this is what you're bringing into the family." Caleb, sitting to his father's right, kept his expression neutral. "Father, this is Lin Mei. We're marrying tomorrow." "I can see what she is," Elijah said, looking Lin Mei up and down like she was livestock. "Chinese, dirt poor by the looks of it. What are you thinking, boy?" "I'm thinking I need a wife," Caleb said evenly. "And I chose her." "You chose wrong." Elijah's voice was flat, final. "We're ranchers, Caleb. We have a name in this territory. You bring in some—" "That's enough." Caleb's voice cut through, harder now. "She's going to be my wife. You'll treat her with respect." Elijah laughed, bitter and sharp. "Respect? For this?" He looked at Lin Mei again. "Can you even speak English, girl?" Lin Mei's hands were clenched under the table, nails digging into her palms. She wanted to run, wanted to disappear. But she'd spent 18 years being treated like she was nothing. She was damned if she'd let this stranger make her feel that way too. "Yes," she said clearly. "I speak English." "Well, ain't that something?" Elijah leaned back in his chair. "Caleb, you want to ruin this family's reputation? That's your business. But don't expect me to smile and pretend this is acceptable." Mrs. Kowalski, an older Polish woman who seemed to serve as cook and housekeeper, brought out the food then. Beef, potatoes, bread. She gave Lin Mei a sympathetic look but didn't say anything. The meal was eaten in tense silence. Elijah didn't speak again, but his presence filled the room like smoke. After dinner, Caleb walked Lin Mei back upstairs. "I'm sorry," he said at her bedroom door. He's set in his ways." "He hates me," Lin Mei said flatly. "He hates change," Caleb corrected. "But this is my ranch. He ran it for 40 years, but I run it now. He doesn't get a vote." "He'll make my life hell." Caleb didn't deny it. "Probably. But if you can handle the work, the rest of them will come around. They follow strength, not bloodlines." He left her there, and Lin Mei closed the door, leaning against it. Through the window, she could see the bunkhouses where the ranch hands lived. Lamplight flickered. She heard distant laughter, the sound of men finishing their day. Tomorrow she'd marry a stranger. She'd become part of this world that clearly didn't want her, and she'd have to prove herself every single day just to survive. She thought about running, taking her trunk and walking into the night. But where would she go? Back to a family that despised her? Into a town that saw her as less than human? No, she'd made her choice. She'd see it through, even if it killed her. The wedding was brief and joyless. The judge arrived at 10 in the morning, a tired-looking man who rattled through the vows like he was reading a grocery list. Mrs. Kowalski and Chen stood as witnesses. Elijah didn't attend, made a point of staying in his room, making his opinion clear. Lin Mei wore the same dress she'd worn to dinner. Caleb wore clean work clothes. They stood in the parlor, repeating words that didn't feel real, and when the judge pronounced them married, Caleb gave her hand a brief squeeze. That was the only gesture of warmth in the whole proceeding. Afterward, Caleb went straight back to work. There was a problem with fencing in the north pasture, something about cattle getting loose. He was gone before noon. Mrs. Kowalski found Lin Mei standing in the kitchen, uncertain what to do with herself. "You can help me," the older woman said, not unkindly. "If you want. Or you can rest. Is your wedding day, after all." Lin Mei looked around the large kitchen, the wood stove, the pantry stocked with more food than she'd seen in one place in her life, the heavy pots hanging from hooks. "I'd rather work," she said. Mrs. Kowalski smiled, tired but genuine. "Good. I need help preserving these tomatoes before they spoil. You know how to can?" "No, but I can learn." "Then we start there." They worked through the afternoon. Mrs. Kowalski was patient, showing Lin Mei how to sterilize the jars, prepare the tomatoes, seal everything properly. She talked while they worked, about the ranch, about Caleb, about his first wife. "Margaret," Mrs. Kowalski said, slicing tomatoes with practiced efficiency. "She was town girl, pretty, educated. She tried, I think, but this life—" She shook her head. "Too hard for her. She got sick third winter. Pneumonia. Caleb brought doctor, brought medicine. Nothing worked. She died that spring. Did she love him? Lin May asked. Mrs. Kowalski paused, considering. I think she loved idea of him. Big ranch, strong man, romantic, yes? But reality is harder, colder, lonelier. She looked at Lin May directly. You, though, you not expecting romance, I think. No, Lin May agreed. I'm not. Good. Is better that way. You survive longer. It wasn't exactly encouraging, but it was honest. They finished the canning as the sun started to set. Lin May's hands were red from the hot water, her back ached, but she felt useful. Present. It was more than she'd felt in years. Caleb came back around 7, dusty and tired. He washed up at the pump outside, then joined them for dinner. Elijah appeared this time, wheeled in by one of the ranch hands. The old man still didn't speak to Lin May, but at least he didn't actively insult her either. Small victories. After dinner, Caleb pulled Lin May aside. I need to ride out early tomorrow, he said, taking some hands to move cattle to the South Range. I'll be gone 3, maybe 4 days. Lin May felt a spike of panic. You're leaving. It's the work, he said simply. Happens regular. Mrs. Kowalski will show you what needs doing. And listen. He lowered his voice. Stay out of my father's way if you can. Don't engage if he starts. He's testing you. Don't give him ammunition. Then he was gone, heading upstairs, and Lin May was left standing in the dim hallway of a house that didn't feel like hers, married to a man who was already leaving. She climbed the stairs to her room, her separate room, still hers alone, and sat on the bed. Through the walls, she could hear the old man's voice, sharp and demanding, berating some poor servant. Could hear the wind picking up outside, rattling the windows. This was her life now. This strange, hard, isolated place. And she had no idea if she was strong enough to survive it. Caleb left before dawn. Lin May woke to the sound of horses and men's voices, and by the time she dressed and came downstairs, he was gone. Mrs. Kowalski was already in the kitchen, starting breakfast for the remaining hands. You eat, she said, pointing to a plate of eggs and bread. Then I show you the chickens. We collect eggs every morning. Lin May ate quickly, then followed the older woman outside. The morning was cold, the sky just starting to lighten. The chicken coop was behind the main house, a sturdy structure that housed maybe 30 birds. Mrs. Kowalski showed her how to collect the eggs without spooking the hens, where to watch for broody ones that might peck. You do this every day, she said. Also, you check the water, make sure they have feed. Is easy, but important. They spent the morning working through the daily tasks, feeding chickens, tending the kitchen garden, preparing the midday meal for the hands who weren't out on the range. Lin May learned quickly, her hands remembering the rhythm of work, even if the specific tasks were new. Around noon, she was in the garden pulling weeds when she heard voices from the front of the house. Men arguing. She stood, brushing dirt from her skirt, and walked around the side of the house to see what was happening. 3 ranch hands stood near the porch. She recognized them from meals, white men, rough-looking, the kind who eyed her like she was an oddity. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his jaw, was holding a coil of rope, gesturing angrily. Should have been checked yesterday, he was saying. Now we got a section of fence down and cattle wandering into McCready's land. Boss is going to be furious when he gets back. Boss ain't here, another man said. And I ain't taking orders from some Chinaman. He spat the word. Chen thinks he can tell us what to do. He's got another think coming. Lin May froze. They hadn't noticed her yet. She should go back to the garden, stay invisible like she'd learned to do. This wasn't her business. But then the scarred man looked up and saw her. His expression shifted to something ugly. Well, look who's here. The new Mrs. Turner. He said it like a joke. You settling in? Learning your place? Lin May's hands clenched. She wanted to retreat, but something in his tone, the mockery, the assumption that she'd just take it, made her feet stick to the ground. What's the problem? She asked, keeping her voice level. The men exchanged glances, surprised she'd spoken. The scarred man grinned. Problem is, some of us got work to do, and some of us, he nodded toward the bunkhouse where the Chinese workers stayed, think they can give orders. Your husband might not care about proper hierarchy, but we do. Chen's been here longer than any of you, Lin May said. Mr. Turner trusts him. Mr. Turner made a lot of questionable decisions lately, the third man said, eyeing her pointedly. The implication was clear. Lin Mei felt heat rise in her chest, anger, sharp and bright, but she forced it down. Getting angry wouldn't help. These men wanted her to react, to prove she didn't belong. The fence needs fixing, she said instead. Are you going to do it, or do I need to tell Mr. Turner why his cattle are on McCready's land when he gets back? The scarred man's grin faded. You threatening us? I'm asking a question. They stared at each other for a long moment. Lin Mei's heart hammered, but she didn't look away. Finally, the scarred man spat into the dirt and turned to his companions. Come on, he muttered. Let's get the damn fence fixed before the boss gets back and we all catch hell. They walked off toward the barn, muttering among themselves. Lin Mei stood there, shaking slightly, until Mrs. Kowalski appeared beside her. That was brave, the older woman said quietly. Maybe too brave. They were going to ignore the work, Lin Mei said, because Chen told them to do it. Yes, and now they hate you little bit more. Mrs. Kowalski sighed. Is how it is sometimes. You do right thing, but you make enemies. Lin Mei watched the men disappear into the barn. What else am I supposed to do? Let them walk all over me? No, Mrs. Kowalski said. But be careful. Men like that, they don't forget. The days blurred together. Caleb didn't return in 3 days. It stretched to 5. Lin Mei fell into a routine. Wake before dawn, collect eggs, help with breakfast, work in the garden, help with meals, do laundry, mend clothes, clean. The work was relentless, but she'd been working all her life. She knew how to push through exhaustion. What was harder was the isolation, the loneliness. Mrs. Kowalski was kind but busy with her own tasks. Chen and the other Chinese workers were polite but kept their distance. They were men. She was the boss's wife. It wasn't proper to be too familiar. The white ranch hands avoided her entirely, except to stare when they thought she wasn't looking. And Elijah, the old man had taken to wheeling himself out onto the porch every afternoon, where he'd sit and watch the ranch work. When Lin Mei passed by, he'd make comments. Never to her directly, that would require acknowledging her as a person, but loud enough for her to hear. Ranch is going to hell, he muttered one day as she carried a basket of laundry past. What kind of man leaves his land to chase cattle while some foreign girl pretends to know what she's doing? Lin Mei kept walking, didn't react. Margaret knew how to carry herself, he said another time. Knew what it meant to be a Turner. This one for, he spat. Disgrace. Each comment was a small cut, small enough to ignore individually, but they added up day after day until Lin Mei felt raw all over. On the 6th day, something broke. She was in the kitchen garden, pulling weeds in the late afternoon heat, when Elijah wheeled himself to the edge of the porch. She felt his eyes on her before he even spoke. You know what your problem is? He called out. Lin Mei didn't answer, kept pulling weeds. You think you can work your way into being one of us, he continued, but you can't work away what you are. Can't scrub off that skin, girl. Can't change where you come from. Lin Mei's hands stilled in the dirt. Something hot and terrible rose in her chest. My son made a mistake bringing you here, Elijah said, and everyone knows it. They're just too polite to say it to your face. But I'm old. I don't have to be polite. I can say the truth. You don't belong here. You never will. Lin Mei stood slowly, turned to face him. The old man sat in his chair, looking satisfied, like he'd finally gotten the reaction he wanted. You're right, Lin Mei said, her voice steady despite the fury burning inside her. I don't come from wealth. I don't have pretty manners or a gentle upbringing. I've spent my whole life being told I'm worthless. She stepped toward the porch. Elijah's expression shifted slightly, uncertainty creeping in. But you know what I learned? Lin Mei continued. I learned that people who spend all their time telling others they're worthless are usually trying to convince themselves they're worth something. So tell me, Mr. Turner, if you're so valuable, so important, why are you sitting here every day trying to break a woman who's done nothing but work since she got here? What are you so afraid of? The old man's face went purple. How dare you? I dare because I have nothing to lose, Lin Mei said. You've already made it clear you think I'm nothing. Can't get lower than that. So why should I care what you think? She turned her back on him, a deliberate insult, and returned to her weeding. Behind her, she heard him sputtering, calling for someone to wheel him back inside. She didn't look up. Her hands shook as she worked. She'd just made an enemy of the patriarch. That was probably incredibly stupid, but something in her had finally refused to bend anymore. Mrs. Kowalski appeared beside her a few minutes later, kneeling in the dirt despite her age. "That was very foolish," she said quietly. "I know. He will make trouble for you now." "I know." Mrs. Kowalski was silent for a moment, pulling a weed. But it was also very satisfying to watch. Despite everything, Lin Mei felt a smile tug at her lips. Caleb returned late that night. Lin Mei was already in bed when she heard the horses, the voices of men arriving back. She lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling for the night. She wondered if Elijah would tell Caleb what happened, wondered if her husband would be angry that she disrespected his father, wondered if this was the beginning of the end. But when morning came and she went downstairs, Caleb was already at the breakfast table, eating eggs and reading a ledger. He looked up when she entered. "Morning," he said. "How were things while I was gone?" Lin Mei hesitated. "Fine," she said carefully. Caleb studied her face for a moment. "Mrs. Kowalski said you handled some trouble with the hands, about the fence. They were refusing to work because Chen gave the order," Lin Mei said. "I reminded them you'd want it done." "Good." Caleb went back to his ledger. "Chen said they fixed it fast after you talked to them. Thank you for that." Lin Mei waited, but he didn't mention his father. Either Elijah hadn't said anything or Caleb didn't care. She wasn't sure which. "I'll be around for a few days," Caleb said. "Then I need to go to town, meet with some buyers. You should come." "Why?" "Because you're my wife," he said simply. "People should meet you. See you're real." Lin Mei's stomach twisted. Going into town meant facing stares, whispers, judgment, but refusing would make her look weak, or worse, ashamed. "All right," she said. Caleb nodded and returned to his ledger. The conversation was over. Lin Mei poured herself coffee. Mrs. Kowalski had taught her how Caleb liked it made, and sat at the far end of the table. They ate in silence, two strangers sharing a meal, bound by vows that felt less real every day. Outside, the sun rose over land that stretched farther than Lin Mei could see. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. Men shouted to each other, beginning another day of work. The ranch was waking up, moving forward, indifferent to her presence. Lin Mei finished her coffee and stood. There was work to do. There was always work to do. And if she was going to survive here, really survive, not just exist, she needed to stop waiting for permission, stop hoping for acceptance. She needed to become indispensable, even if it meant breaking herself in the process. The trip to town came 3 days later, and Lin Mei spent the morning before trying to make herself presentable. She scrubbed her hands until they were raw, but the calluses remained. She wore her best dress, still shabby but at least clean, and tried to tame her hair into something respectable. When she looked in the mirror, she saw exactly what she expected, a girl who looked like she belonged in a laundry house, not on a rancher's arm. Caleb was waiting by the wagon when she came down. He looked her over once, nodded, and helped her up onto the seat. No comment about her appearance, good or bad. She wasn't sure if that was better or worse than criticism. The ride took 2 hours. Caleb drove in silence for most of it, his attention on the road and the horses. Lin Mei watched the landscape roll past, endless grass, scattered cattle, the occasional farmhouse in the distance. It was beautiful in a stark, lonely way. "Town's gonna talk," Caleb said eventually, breaking the silence. "They've already heard I got married. But seeing you with me, that'll start the real gossip." "You're worried about your reputation," Lin Mei said. "No." He glanced at her. "I'm worried about yours. Some people in town, they won't be kind. I can't control that. I'm used to unkindness. Maybe, but it's different when it's strangers doing it in public." He paused. "If anyone gives you trouble, you tell me. Don't try to handle it yourself." Lin Mei almost laughed. He had no idea how many years she'd spent handling things herself, with no one to back her up. But she just nodded. The town appeared on the horizon, a collection of wooden buildings clustered along a single main street. Larger than Lin Mei had expected, but still small enough that everyone would know everyone else's business. The kind of place where a Chinese wife would be the talk of the territory for months. Caleb pulled the wagon up in front of a general store. He helped Lin Mei down, and immediately she felt eyes on her. A woman sweeping the porch of the boarding house stopped mid-stroke to stare. Two men outside the saloon turned to watch. A group of children playing in the street went quiet. "Come on," Caleb said, placing a hand on her lower back, the first time he touched her with anything like familiarity. "We need supplies first." The general store was dim and cluttered, smelling of coffee and leather and sawdust. The proprietor, a heavy-set man with mutton chops, looked up from his ledger as they entered. His eyes went straight to Lin Mei, and his expression shifted from professional welcome to something harder. "Turner," he said, ignoring Lin Mei entirely. "Heard you got yourself hitched." "That's right," Caleb said evenly. "This is my wife, Lin Mei. We need flour, sugar, coffee, and whatever fabric Mrs. Kowalski ordered." The proprietor's jaw worked like he was chewing something sour. "Your wife," he repeated. Then, finally looking at Lin Mei. "You speak English?" "Yes," Lin Mei said. "Well." He didn't sound convinced. "Flour's in back, sugar's running low. Might have to wait on that. Coffee I got. Fabric." He checked a paper on the counter. "Yeah, Polish woman's order is ready." He moved around the store gathering items, and Lin Mei noticed he was careful not to hand anything directly to her. Everything went to Caleb, like she wasn't really there, like she was decoration, not a person who might have opinions about what they were buying. While Caleb discussed the order, Lin Mei wandered toward the fabric section. Mrs. Kowalski had mentioned needing thread, and Lin Mei wanted to see if there was anything suitable. She was examining a spool of heavy-duty thread when a woman's voice cut through the quiet. "Well, I'll be. So it's true." Lin Mei turned to find two women standing nearby, one middle-aged and plump, the other younger, maybe 30, with sharp features and a dress that was too fine for a frontier town. The younger one was the speaker, and she was looking at Lin Mei like she was examining a curiosity in a museum. "You're the Chinese girl Caleb Turner married," the woman said. It wasn't a question. "I'm Lin Mei Turner," Lin Mei said, trying to keep her voice steady. "How exotic." The woman's smile was all teeth. "I'm Virginia Hastings. My husband owns the bank, and this is Mrs. Patterson. She runs the boarding house." She paused. "We were all so surprised when we heard. Caleb's first wife was such a refined woman. We'd expected he'd choose someone more suitable." Lin Mei felt the familiar weight settle on her chest, the weight of being judged and found wanting, but she'd promised herself she wouldn't shrink anymore. "Suitable for what?" she asked. Virginia blinked, thrown by the directness. "For ranch life, of course, for society. Margaret was educated, cultured. She knew how to host, how to manage a household properly." "She also died," Lin Mei said flatly, "so maybe she wasn't as suitable as everyone thought." Mrs. Patterson gasped. Virginia's face went red. "How dare you? Is there a problem here?" Caleb appeared beside Lin Mei, his voice calm but carrying an edge. Virginia recovered quickly, her smile snapping back into place. "Of course not, Caleb. We were just getting acquainted with your new wife. Such an interesting choice." "Lin Mei's my wife," Caleb said. "That's all that matters." He turned to the proprietor. "We done here, Morrison?" "Yeah, just let me—" "Good." Loaded in the wagon, Caleb took Lin Mei's elbow, guiding her toward the door. Behind them, Lin Mei heard Virginia's voice, pitched to Carrie. "Well, I suppose everyone's entitled to their mistakes." Lin Mei's hands clenched, but Caleb kept her moving forward. They stepped out into the sunlight, and Lin Mei took a deep breath, trying to calm the fury shaking through her. "Don't let them get to you," Caleb said quietly. "They're bored. Your entertainment. They think you made a mistake marrying me. They think a lot of things. Doesn't make them right." He looked at her. "Virginia Hastings had her cap set for me after Margaret died. She's just sore I didn't ask her." That information landed differently than Lin Mei expected. Virginia hadn't just been judging her as an outsider, she'd been judging her as competition. Somehow that made it feel both worse and slightly less terrible. Morrison came out with their supplies, loading them into the wagon with a series of grunts. Caleb paid him, then helped Lin Mei back up onto the seat. As they pulled away, Lin Mei saw Virginia and Mrs. Patterson watching from the store window, their heads bent together in obvious gossip. I need to stop at the cattle office, Caleb said as they drove down the street. Shouldn't take long. You can wait in the wagon or come in. I'll come in, Lin Mei said. She didn't want to sit alone while the whole town stared at her. The cattle office was a small building near the edge of town. Inside, 3 men sat at a large table covered in maps and ledgers. They looked up as Caleb entered, and their expressions went from welcoming to wary when they saw Lin Mei behind him. Turner, the oldest one said, a grizzled man with a beard that reached his chest. Come to talk about the fall drive? That's right. Need to know the timeline, where you want us to deliver. Caleb gestured to Lin Mei. This is my wife. The men nodded in her direction, but didn't speak to her. Lin Mei found a chair near the door and sat, trying to be invisible while Caleb conducted his business. The conversation was technical, talk of head counts and routes and market prices. She understood maybe half of it, but she listened anyway, filing away information. Your old man still running things? One of the younger men asked casually. Or are you taking over full? There was something in the question that felt loaded. Caleb's shoulders tensed slightly. I run the ranch now, my father's retired. Heard he's none too happy about that, the bearded man said, not unkindly. Heard he's none too happy about a lot of things lately. The implication was clear. Word had spread about Lin Mei, and people had opinions. Caleb's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. My father's entitled to his feelings. Doesn't change what needs doing. The conversation moved back to business, but the atmosphere had shifted. Lin Mei felt the weight of being discussed, even when she wasn't being mentioned directly. She was the unnamed problem, the complication everyone was too polite to address outright. When they finally left, the sun was starting to sink toward the horizon. Caleb drove the wagon toward the edge of town, then pulled off the road near a stand of cottonwood trees. He set the brake and sat there for a moment, hands on his knees. You all right? Lin Mei asked. Should be asking you that. I'm fine. He looked at her then, really looked at her. You handled yourself well. Better than I expected, honestly. Because you thought I'd cry? Run away? I didn't know what to expect. He rubbed his face. Margaret used to get upset when people gossiped. She'd come home from town in tears, talking about how cruel everyone was. It wore on her. I'm not Margaret, Lin Mei said. No, Caleb agreed. You're not. He hesitated, then said, My father told me what happened between you two. Lin Mei's stomach dropped. What did he say? That you were disrespectful, that you talked back, showed no deference. Caleb's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. He wanted me to put you in your place. And are you going to? No. Caleb picked up the reins again. Because from what Mrs. Kowalski told me, he'd been needling you for days, and you were more polite than I would have been in your position. He glanced at her. My father's used to getting his way. Good for him to learn he can't bully everyone. Relief washed through Lin Mei, followed immediately by suspicion. You're not angry? I'm tired, Caleb said. I'm tired of my father trying to run my life. I'm tired of this town thinking they get a say in my decisions, and I'm tired of everyone assuming you're going to fail. He snapped the reins, getting the horses moving again. So let's just go home and get back to work. It wasn't a declaration of support, exactly, but it was something. Lin Mei settled back against the seat and watched the town disappear behind them. The ranch appeared in the distance as dusk settled, and Lin Mei felt an unexpected flutter of something that might have been relief. For all its problems, the ranch was becoming familiar, known, a place where at least she understood the rules, even if they were hard. That feeling lasted until they pulled up to the house and saw the cluster of men gathered near the barn, their voices raised in argument. Caleb was off the wagon before it fully stopped, striding toward the commotion. Lin Mei climbed down and followed, her heart already hammering with dread. Chen stood in the center of the group, his face bloodied, one eye swelling shut. The scarred ranch hand, Jackson, she'd learned his name was, stood facing him, fists clenched. 2 other hands were trying to hold them apart, while a fourth shouted something about a missing horse. What the hell happened? Caleb demanded. Everyone started talking at once. Caleb raised a hand, silencing them. One at a time. Jackson, you first. Jackson spat blood into the dirt. This Chinaman stole my horse, took it out without permission, rode it hard enough to lame it. I come back from work and find my horse limping, and he's over there acting like he didn't do nothing wrong. Chen's English was rough, but his anger was clear. I not steal. Boss tell me take horse, check fence line and canyon. I do job. Horse step in hole, I walk back. I tell you this, you no listen, you just hit. I didn't tell you to take Jackson's horse, Caleb said to Chen. You tell me check fence. You tell me take horse if needed. I take horse. There's 20 horses in that corral, Jackson snarled. And you took mine. The only one that's mine, not ranch stock. You did it on purpose. I not know is your horse. All horse look same. Bullshit. Enough. Caleb's voice cut through the argument like a blade. He looked at Chen. You should have asked which horse to take, but you're right that I told you to check the fence. He turned to Jackson. And you should have handled this without your fists. Your horse gonna be all right? Might be lame permanent, Jackson said bitterly. Caleb pulled out his wallet, counted out bills. This covers the horse, and then some. You want to work here, you don't get to attack other hands over mistakes. We clear? Jackson took the money, but his expression was murderous. Crystal. Chen, go get that eye looked at. Mrs. Kowalski's got ice in the cold cellar. Caleb looked around at the gathered men. Everyone else, back to work. Show's over. The crowd dispersed slowly, muttering. Jackson shoved past Chen hard enough to make him stumble, but Chen didn't retaliate. He just pressed a hand to his swelling eye and headed toward the house. Lin Mei followed him inside, where Mrs. Kowalski was already getting ice from the cold cellar. The older woman took one look at Chen and started fussing over him in Polish-accented English, sitting him down and pressing a wrapped bundle of ice to his face. It's bad, she muttered, that Jackson, he is trouble, always trouble. Chen bore the ministration stoically, but Lin Mei could see the humiliation in the set of his shoulders. He'd done his job and gotten beaten for it, and even though Caleb had technically backed him up, everyone had seen him bloodied. That kind of thing left marks deeper than bruises. Thank you, Chen said to Mrs. Kowalski, then seeing Lin Mei, sorry, Mrs. Turner, you should not see this. It's not your fault, Lin Mei said. It's always somebody's fault. Chen's good eye met hers. You be careful. These men, they don't want us here. Any excuse, they make trouble. It was the most direct warning she'd gotten since arriving. Lin Mei nodded, understanding the weight of it. That night, lying in her separate bed in her separate room, Lin Mei heard raised voices from somewhere downstairs. She crept to her door, opening it a crack. Can't keep doing this! That was Caleb's voice, angry in a way she'd never heard. Every time I turn around, there's another fight, another problem. I'm trying to run a ranch, not a damn battlefield. Then stop hiring Chinese. Elijah's voice, venomous. You bring in these people, you get this trouble. It's that simple. Chen's been here 8 years. He's a good worker. This wasn't his fault, wasn't it? Or are you so blinded by your bleeding heart that you can't see what everyone else does? They don't belong here. They never will. And that wife of yours, leave her out of this. She's part of it. You parading her around town, forcing everyone to accept what they never will. You're destroying this ranch's reputation, destroying everything I built. You built it on the backs of workers you paid half what they were worth, Caleb shot back. Chinese, Mexican, didn't matter to you as long as they were cheap. So don't lecture me about who belongs here. At least I didn't marry them. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Lin Mei pressed her hand to her mouth, heart hammering. This conversation is over, Caleb said finally, his voice cold. You want to stay in this house. You keep your opinions about my wife to yourself. Otherwise, I'll set you up in the foreman's cottage, and you can rot there alone. You wouldn't dare, shush. Try me. Lin Mei heard footsteps, someone storming away. A door slammed, then silence. She retreated to her bed, pulling the blanket up even though she wasn't cold. The words circled in her head. Destroying the ranch, destroying the reputation, doesn't belong, never will. She'd known people thought these things, but hearing them said so bluntly, hearing the raw anger in Elijah's voice, made it harder to ignore. She was poison to this place. No matter how hard she worked, no matter what she did, she'd always be the mistake Caleb made. The foreign wife who ruined everything. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The next morning brought new trouble. Lin Mei was feeding the chickens when she heard shouting from the northern pasture. She looked up to see several hands running toward the barn, Chen among them. Something was wrong. She dropped the feed bucket and ran. By the time she reached the barn, a crowd had gathered. Through the press of bodies, she saw what had them agitated, a cow on the ground, thrashing weakly, clearly in distress. It was trying to give birth, but something had gone wrong. "Where's the boss?" someone shouted. "Rode out to the South Range at dawn," another voice answered. "Won't be back till afternoon. We need to do something now. That calf's breech, and if we don't get it out, we'll lose both of them." The hands looked at each other, uncertainty written on every face. This was delicate work, the kind that could go bad fast. Nobody wanted to be responsible if things went wrong. Lin Mei pushed through the crowd before she could think better of it. "What needs to be done?" Jackson sneered at her. "This ain't work for a woman, especially not one who don't know cattle. Then tell me what I need to know. You crazy? You ever pulled a calf before?" "No, but I've got small hands and I'm not afraid of blood." Lin Mei knelt beside the suffering animal. Up close, she could see the cow's eyes rolling, the way it shuddered with each contraction. "Someone tell me what to do, or stand back and watch this animal die." "She's right about the hands," Chen said quietly. "Small hands better for breech birth." One of the older hands, a Mexican man named Luis, stepped forward. "You got courage, I give you that. All right, you do what I say exactly, no hesitation. Tell me." What followed was 30 minutes of the most visceral, terrifying work Lin Mei had ever done. Luis walked her through it step by step, how to reach in, how to find the calf's legs, how to carefully, slowly turn it. The cow fought her, thrashing in pain. Blood and fluid covered Lin Mei's arms up to her elbows. Twice she thought she'd made it worse, that she was going to kill both animals right here in front of everyone. But she kept going, kept following Luis's calm instructions, kept her hands steady even when everything in her wanted to quit. And then, finally, the calf's hooves appeared, then the head. Luis and Chen took over, pulling carefully, and with one final shuddering push from the mother, the calf slid free. It lay still for a horrible moment. Then it coughed, shook its head, and started breathing. The cow lowed softly, exhausted but alive. The calf tried to stand on wobbly legs. The gathered hands were silent. Lin Mei sat back in the dirt, covered in blood and birth fluid, shaking from adrenaline. Her arms ached. Her back screamed. But both animals were alive. "I'll be damned," Jackson said finally. "She actually did it." Luis helped Lin Mei to her feet. "You got guts, Mrs. Turner, and you listened good. That count for a lot." Chen was grinning despite his still swollen eye. "Boss will be pleased. That cow is good breeding stock. Calf too if it survives." The hands began to disperse, talking among themselves in tones that weren't hostile anymore. Not friendly exactly, but no longer dismissive either. They'd seen her do something difficult without flinching. That bought her something in their eyes. Not acceptance, but acknowledgement. Mrs. Kowalski met her at the door with a bucket of water. "You need bath," she said, wrinkling her nose. "You smell like barn, but also—" She smiled. "You did good. I hear them talking. They respect you more now." Lin Mei stripped off her ruined dress in the washroom, standing in her undergarments as she scrubbed blood from her skin. Her hands were raw, her muscles ached, and she still felt the ghost sensation of the calf inside her grip, fighting to be born. But she also felt something else, a strange, fierce pride. She'd faced something terrifying and hadn't run, hadn't failed, and people had noticed. When Caleb returned that afternoon, Luis told him what happened. Caleb found Lin Mei in the kitchen, helping Mrs. Kowalski prepare dinner. He stood in the doorway, studying her. "Heard you played midwife," he said. "The cow needed help. Most people would have waited for me. The cow didn't have time to wait." Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then, "Thank you. That animal's worth good money, and the calf's got good bloodlines. You saved us a significant loss." It was the closest thing to praise he'd given her. Lin Mei just nodded, focusing on the potatoes she was peeling. That night at dinner, even Elijah was silent. He looked at Lin Mei with something that might have been grudging respect or might have been irritation that she'd proven herself useful. Either way, he didn't make his usual cutting remarks. Small victories, Lin Mei thought. Very small, but victories nonetheless. The next few weeks settled into a pattern. The work remained brutal, up before dawn, asleep only after the last chore was done. But Lin Mei found herself getting stronger, more capable. She learned to ride well enough to check fence lines, learned to recognize when cattle were sick, learned the rhythms of the ranch, the flow of seasons and work. And slowly, grudgingly, The hands began to accept her presence. Not as an equal, not yet, maybe never, but as someone who belonged there more than she didn't. Jackson still glared at her every chance he got, but he'd stopped making open comments. Luis would nod to her when they passed. Even some of the white hands had started including her in work details without complaint. Chen became something like a friend. He'd sit with her sometimes in the evenings, teaching her Cantonese words she'd forgotten, telling her stories about other Chinese workers he'd known. It was the closest thing to family Lin Mei had felt in years. But the victory was fragile. Lin Mei could feel it, the way acceptance could crack and shatter with one wrong move, the way people were waiting for her to fail, to prove they'd been right about her all along. She just had to make sure she didn't give them the satisfaction. The trouble came again on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the calf incident. Lin Mei was in the stable, mucking out stalls, when she heard horses approaching fast. Too fast. She dropped her pitchfork and ran outside. 4 riders thundered into the ranch yard, their horses lathered. The lead rider was a man she didn't recognize. Middle-aged, well-dressed, with the kind of face that had probably been handsome before anger and whiskey had carved it hard. "Where's Turner?" he shouted at the nearest hand. "Out on the range, Mr. McCready. Won't be back till—" "I don't care when he'll be back. Someone's been cutting my fence, letting my cattle onto Turner land. I want answers, and I want them now." McCready. Lin Mei recognized the name, the neighboring rancher, the one Jackson had mentioned weeks ago when Chen's horse had supposedly wandered onto McCready land. There'd been tension between the properties for years, Caleb had mentioned once, disputes over water rights, grazing boundaries. Elijah wheeled himself onto the porch, his face hard. "McCready, what's this about?" "Your son's been stealing my cattle, Turner, or someone on this ranch has. I've lost 20 head in the past month, and I just found fresh-cut wire on our shared fence line." "That's a serious accusation," Elijah said coldly. "You got proof?" "I got missing cattle and cut wire. That's proof enough." Lin Mei's mind raced. She'd been checking fence lines regularly as part of her duties. She'd seen the northern boundary with McCready's land just 3 days ago, and the wire had been intact. If it was cut now, it had happened recently. 3 days ago, that fence was fine, she called out before she could stop herself. Every head turned toward her. McCready's eyes narrowed. "And who the hell are you?" "My son's wife," Elijah said, his tone making it clear what he thought of that fact. "Your son married a Chinese?" McCready laughed, harsh and ugly. "Well, that explains some things. Probably got a whole network of thieves working your land now." "Watch your mouth," Elijah snapped, surprising Lin Mei. He might hate her, but apparently he hated McCready more. "I want to talk to Caleb," McCready said. "Face to face, today, or I'm going to the sheriff." "Boss won't be back till sundown," Chen said, appearing from the barn. "You want to wait? You wait. You want to leave? You leave." McCready's face flushed. "I don't take orders from—" "You're on Turner land?" Elijah interrupted. "So yes, you do. You want to wait for Caleb? You're welcome to. But you'll do it civil or you'll leave now." The 2 old men locked eyes, decades of rivalry crackling between them. Finally, McCready spat into the dirt. "Fine. We'll wait, but I want coffee, and I want it now." Lin Mei found herself volunteered by Mrs. Kowalski's desperate look. She went to the kitchen, put on the coffee, and carried it out to the porch where McCready and his men had settled, Elijah watching them like a hawk. She poured coffee with shaking hands, waiting for the insults she knew were coming. McCready took his cup without thanks, then looked up at her. "You really his wife?" "Yes. And you're telling me you check fence lines?" "I help where I'm needed." He snorted. "Well, aren't you just full of surprises? Tell me, girl, you see any of your Chinese friends cutting wire? Maybe running cattle across?" "No." Lin Mei met his eyes. "And if someone's cutting your fence, it's not coming from this ranch. Mr. Turner runs honest operations." "So you say. But you'd say that, wouldn't you? Protecting your husband's interests." "I'd say it because it's true." McCready studied her for a long moment, then laughed again. Less harsh this time, almost amused. "You got spine, I'll give you that. More than the first wife had, from what I heard." Elijah's expression darkened, but he didn't comment. Lin Mei retreated to the kitchen, her heart hammering. She'd just defended Caleb and the ranch to a man who could cause them serious trouble. And she wasn't even sure if she believed her own words. Did she know, truly, That no one on the ranch was stealing cattle? Did she know Caleb was running honest operations? She'd been here less than 2 months. What did she really know about any of this? But she'd committed herself now. Said the words out loud. Taken aside. When Caleb finally returned at dusk, his expression went hard the moment he saw McCready's horses. The confrontation that followed was tense and loud, both ranchers accusing, defending, neither backing down. Lin May listened from the kitchen window as they argued about boundaries, about missing cattle, about respect and honor, and all the things men used to justify their anger. Finally, they agreed to ride out together at first light, check the fence line, see if they could figure out what was happening. McCready and his men would stay in the bunkhouse overnight, an arrangement nobody was happy about, but necessary if they wanted to settle this without involving the law. That night, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Lin May lay awake, listening to unfamiliar voices from the bunkhouse, wondering what tomorrow would bring, and wondering when the next crisis would hit. Because if she'd learned anything in her time here, it was that crisis was always coming. The only question was whether she'd be strong enough to survive it. Dawn came cold and gray, the kind of morning that made bones ache. Lin May was already in the kitchen when the men gathered, helping Mrs. Kowalski prepare enough breakfast to feed 2 ranch crews. The atmosphere was tense, McCready's men clustering on one side of the long table, Turner's hands on the other, everyone eating in hostile silence. Caleb came down dressed for riding, his face showing the sleepless night he'd had. He caught Lin May's eye across the kitchen and gave a slight nod. Acknowledgement, maybe gratitude for the coffee she poured him. Then he was out the door with McCready, a half-dozen hands from each ranch following. "This is bad," Mrs. Kowalski muttered as she watched them ride north. Men with pride, they do stupid things. Someone will get hurt. Lin May thought about the cut wire, the missing cattle. Something didn't add up. McCready had said 20 head over a month. That was too many to go unnoticed if they were being driven across Turner land. Someone would have seen something. And the timing of the cut fence, right after weeks of Lin May checking that same section and finding it intact, felt convenient. Too convenient. She was washing dishes when Jackson came through the kitchen, grabbed a canteen from the hook. He saw her watching and sneered. "Something to say, China girl?" "The fence was fine 3 days ago," Lin May said. "I checked it myself." "So? Lot can happen in 3 days." He filled his canteen from the pump. Maybe McCready's right. Maybe someone here's been helping themselves to his stock. "You think Mr. Turner would steal cattle?" Jackson laughed. "I think your husband's so busy trying to prove he's better than his old man that he don't see what's happening under his nose. Chinese workers, Mexican workers, now a Chinese wife. He's practically invited trouble onto this land." Lin May set down the dish she was holding with more force than necessary. "If you've got accusations, make them to Mr. Turner's face. Otherwise, shut your mouth." Jackson's expression turned ugly. He crossed the kitchen in 2 strides, getting close enough that Lin May could smell tobacco and sweat. "You don't tell me what to do. I've been working this ranch since before you were born. I don't care whose bed you're in. You don't got the right." "She's got more right than you do." Chen appeared in the doorway, his bruised face hard. "And boss would be real interested to hear you talking to his wife like that." For a moment, Lin May thought Jackson might throw a punch, his fists clenched, his jaw working. But Mrs. Kowalski appeared behind Chen, wooden spoon in hand like a weapon, and the absurdity of the scene seemed to break the tension. Jackson spat at their feet and stalked out. "That man is poison," Mrs. Kowalski said. "Boss should have fired him long ago." "Boss needs the hands," Chen said quietly. "Good workers are hard to find, even the troublesome ones." Lin May's hands were shaking. She plunged them back into the dishwater, needing something to do. Chen watched her for a moment, then said, "You were right to defend the ranch, but be careful. Jackson is the type to hold grudges." The men returned at midday, and Lin May could tell from their faces that nothing had been resolved. Caleb dismounted heavily, his expression grim. McCready looked equally unhappy. They stood in the yard surrounded by their respective hands, and the air felt electric with potential violence. "Wires cut clean," McCready said loudly, clearly wanting everyone to hear. "Professional job. Someone who knows what they're doing. And tracks leading back toward my land," Caleb said, "which proves nothing except that someone wants it to look like my operation." Convenient excuse. It's the truth. Caleb's voice was hard. I don't need your cattle, McCready. I've got plenty of my own. Someone's trying to start trouble between us. Or you're covering for someone who works for you. McCready's eyes swept the gathered workers, lingering on the Chinese hands. Wouldn't be the first time cheap labor turned to thieving. Chen stiffened beside Lin Mei. She felt her own anger spike, hot and immediate. But before either of them could speak, Louis stepped forward. I've worked this ranch 12 years, the older Mexican hand said, his English careful but clear. Mr. Turner, he pays fair. He treats honest. If there are thieves here, they are not his men. You would say that, one of McCready's men muttered. I say it because it's true, Louis shot back. The situation was deteriorating fast. Lin Mei could see Caleb trying to keep control, but too many people were angry, too much suspicion in the air. And then she saw it. A flicker of something on Jackson's face. Not anger, satisfaction, like he was watching exactly what he'd hoped to see. That's when understanding clicked into place. The convenient timing, the professional cut, the way Jackson had been so quick to suggest Chinese workers were to blame. It's him, Lin Mei said, not meaning to speak aloud but unable to stop herself. Jackson! He cut the wire. Every head turned toward her. The silence was absolute. Jackson's face went from satisfied to shocked to furious in the space of a heartbeat. What did you just say? He demanded. Lin Mei's heart hammered, but she'd gone too far to back down now. You cut McCready's fence. You've been trying to start trouble between the ranches, make it look like the Chinese workers are stealing. You've lost your mind. You hate that Mr. Turner hired Chinese hands, Lin Mei continued, the words coming faster now. You hate that he married me. You've been looking for a way to prove we're all trouble. So you cut the fence, maybe even moved some cattle yourself, and waited for McCready to notice. Jackson's face was purple now. That's insane. Why would I sabotage my own employer? Because you worked for Mr. Turner's father first, Lin Mei said. Because you think the old way was better. Because you'd rather see this ranch fail than see it succeed with people you think don't belong. The accusation hung in the air. Caleb was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. McCready looked between Jackson and Lin Mei, calculating. And Jackson looked like he wanted to kill her where she stood. You got any proof of this? Caleb asked quietly. Or are you just guessing? Lin Mei's stomach sank. She didn't have proof. She had suspicion, instinct, the way Jackson had looked too pleased when tensions rose, but nothing concrete, nothing that would hold up. No, she admitted, but I'm right. Jackson laughed, harsh and victorious. Listen to this. Your wife accuses me of a crime based on nothing but her imagination, and you're actually considering it might be true. This is what happens when you marry some Chinese girl off the street. They make you weak, make you stupid. Careful, Caleb said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Why? Because I'm telling the truth? Everyone here knows it. She's poison to this ranch. You brought her in to spite your father, to prove you're in charge, but all you've done is… He didn't finish. Caleb hit him. One solid punch to the jaw that dropped Jackson like a stone. The gathered men erupted in shouts, some moving to separate them, others encouraging a fight. McCready's hands reached for weapons. Everything balanced on the edge of chaos. Enough! Elijah's voice cut through the noise. The old man had wheeled himself onto the porch without anyone noticing, and now he commanded attention like he'd commanded this ranch for 40 years. All of you, shut your mouths! The silence that followed was shocked. Elijah looked at his son, at Jackson groaning on the ground, at the assembled hands bristling with tension. Then his eyes landed on Lin Mei. You, he said. What makes you think Jackson did this? Lin Mei swallowed hard. Elijah had never addressed her directly, never acknowledged her as anything but a problem. Now his full attention was on her, and it felt like standing in front of a judge. He's been causing problems since I arrived, she said, forcing her voice steady. Fighting with Chen, undermining Mr. Turner's authority. Today in the kitchen, he suggested the Chinese workers might be stealing. It was like he was planting the idea before anyone even accused them. That's not proof, Elijah said. No, but it's behavior. And the fence was intact when I checked it 3 days ago. Jackson knew I'd been checking that section. Everyone knew, because Luis assigned me that route. So whoever cut it knew they had a 3-day window before I'd check again. Elijah was silent for a long moment. Then, "McCready, you said the cut looked professional. Clean, deliberate," McCready confirmed, still wary but listening. "Jackson worked as a line rider before he came here," Elijah said. 15 years ago, when this territory was wilder. He'd know how to cut wire clean, how to move cattle quiet. He looked at Jackson, who was climbing to his feet, blood running from his split lip. "And he's been complaining about my son's hiring practices since Caleb took over. I heard him, ignored it, because a man's entitled to his opinions. But now I'm wondering if he moved past opinions into action." Jackson's eyes widened. "You can't seriously... You hate her as much as I do. You've said it yourself. She's ruining..." "What I think about my daughter-in-law isn't relevant," Elijah interrupted coldly. "What's relevant is whether you've been sabotaging this ranch. And right now, I'm thinking maybe you have." The betrayal on Jackson's face was almost comical. He'd expected Elijah to back him, to join forces against the outsiders. Instead, the old man had turned on him. "Search his things," Caleb said. "His bunk, his saddlebags. If he's been moving cattle, there might be evidence." Two of the hands moved toward the bunkhouse. Jackson tried to run. Chen and Luis caught him, dragged him back. The search took 10 minutes, and when the hands emerged from the bunkhouse, one of them was carrying a leather pouch. "Found this hidden in his mattress," the hand said, opening it to reveal a wad of cash. "More money than any hand should have saved up on our wages." "Could have been saving for years," Jackson protested, but his voice had lost its conviction. "How much is there?" Caleb asked. The hand counted it. "Near $300. McCready's expression changed. "I've been missing cattle for a month. At market prices, 20 head would fetch about..." He trailed off, doing the math. "About $300. Jackson's face confirmed everything before he even spoke. The guilt was written there, the knowledge that he'd been caught. He sagged between the men holding him, all the fight draining out. "Who'd you sell him to?" Caleb demanded. "Buyer 2 towns over," Jackson muttered. "Said he didn't ask questions about brands. I rebranded McCready's cattle with a running iron, drove them over in small groups. Figured by the time anyone noticed, there'd be enough suspicion between you two that you'd be too busy fighting to figure out the truth." "And you thought we'd blame the Chinese workers," Lin Mei said. Jackson looked at her with pure hatred. "Would have worked if you'd kept your mouth shut. But you had to be clever, had to prove yourself useful." He spat blood. "Your kind always does. Worming your way in where you don't belong, taking what isn't yours." Caleb hit him again. This time no one moved to stop him. When Jackson was on the ground, nose bleeding, Caleb turned to McCready. "I'll pay you for the cattle," he said. "Full market price plus 20% for the trouble. And Jackson here is yours. Press charges, don't press charges, whatever you want. But he doesn't work for me anymore." McCready studied Caleb for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. And Turner..." He glanced at Lin Mei. "Your wife's got sharp eyes. You're lucky to have her." It wasn't much, but coming from McCready, it meant something. The neighboring rancher mounted his horse, his men following suit. 2 of them hauled Jackson up between their horses, the disgraced hand slumped and bleeding. "We'll send word about the payment," McCready said. "And Turner, next time you think I'm stealing from you, maybe ask before you assume." "Same to you," Caleb said. They rode out, dust rising behind them. The Turner hands dispersed slowly, talking among themselves in low voices. Lin Mei stood in the yard, shaking with adrenaline, barely able to process what had just happened. She'd accused a man publicly, been right, possibly prevented violence between 2 ranch crews, and earned grudging respect from a man who'd insulted her just yesterday. Elijah wheeled himself to the edge of the porch, looking down at her. Their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't offer any warmth, but he gave a single nod, acknowledgement, if not approval, before wheeling himself back inside. "That was either very brave or very stupid," Caleb said, appearing beside her. His knuckles were bloody from hitting Jackson. "Probably both," Lin Mei admitted. "You didn't have proof when you spoke up." "No, but I was right." "You could have been wrong. Could have made everything worse." He paused. "But you weren't. And you stood up when everyone else was too busy being angry to think straight." He looked at her properly then, and there was something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Respect, maybe. Or the beginning of it. "Thank you." Lin Mei nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Caleb went to deal with the aftermath, calming the remaining hands, organizing the work that had been interrupted. Lin Mei returned to the kitchen, where Mrs. Kowalski immediately pushed a cup of tea into her hands. "You are either very smart or very lucky," the older woman said. "Maybe both." "I'm terrified," Lin Mei admitted, her hands shaking around the cup. "I just accused a man of a crime in front of everyone. If I'd been wrong. But you were right, and now everyone sees you are not just boss's wife. You are someone who thinks, someone who acts." Mrs. Kowalski smiled. "Is good, but also dangerous. People notice you now. That brings new problems." She was right. Lin Mei could feel it already, the weight of attention she'd never wanted. Before today, she'd been the strange Chinese wife, someone to gossip about but largely ignore. Now she'd proven she had a voice, had used it to solve a crisis. People would remember that, would expect more from her, would watch her more closely, waiting for her to fail. The thought was exhausting. That night, Caleb knocked on her bedroom door for the first time since their marriage. Lin Mei opened it to find him standing in the hallway, looking uncertain in a way she'd never seen. "Can I come in?" he asked. She stepped back, letting him enter. He stood in the center of the small room, looking around like he'd never seen it before. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe he'd given her this space and deliberately stayed away, giving her the privacy she needed to adjust. "I wanted to talk to you," he said finally, "about today." "Did I overstep?" Lin Mei asked, accusing Jackson without proof. "Maybe, but you were right, so it's hard to be angry about it." He ran a hand through his hair. "I keep thinking, if you hadn't spoken up, we might have had a range war on our hands. McCready and I would have torn each other apart while Jackson laughed all the way to the bank. You would have figured it out eventually." "Would I?" Caleb shook his head. "I'm not sure. I was so busy defending my decisions, defending you and the other workers, that I wasn't looking at the people who'd been here all along. Didn't occur to me that someone loyal to my father might sabotage me just to prove the old way was better." Lin Mei sat on the edge of the bed. "Your father backed you today. That surprised me. Surprised me too." Caleb leaned against the dresser. "He hates change. Hates that I married you. Hates that I won't run the ranch his way. But he hates betrayal more. Jackson crossed a line. Stealing from a neighbor reflects on the whole ranch. My father built this place on a reputation for being hard but honest. Jackson threatened that. So he chose the ranch over his prejudices. For now." Caleb was quiet for a moment. "Listen, I know this hasn't been easy. I know I married you for practical reasons, gave you a room and a job and not much else. I know the town treats you like dirt, and half the hands wish you weren't here. But what you did today," he met her eyes. "That took courage. And it helped, really helped." Lin Mei didn't know what to say. This was the most he'd spoken to her since their wedding, the most human he'd seemed. "I want you to know," Caleb continued, "if you want to leave, if this is too hard, I won't stop you. I'll give you money, help you get settled somewhere else. You've more than earned it." The offer should have been tempting, a way out, freedom from this hard life, from the constant judgment and isolation. But Lin Mei surprised herself by shaking her head. "I'm not leaving," she said. "Why not?" "Because I'm tired of running, tired of being somewhere I'm not wanted and just taking it." She looked up at him. "Here, at least I can fight back, can prove myself. At home, I was nothing and I always would be. Here," she gestured vaguely, "here I might become something. Maybe." Caleb studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A real smile. Not the tight grimace she usually saw. "You're tougher than you look, Lin Mei Turner." "I'd have to be," she said. "Look at what I married into." He laughed, and the sound was startling in its genuineness. "Fair point." He moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you stayed." After he left, Lin Mei lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Something had shifted today. Not completely, not dramatically, but Caleb had looked at her differently, had acknowledged her as a partner, not just an acquisition. And Elijah, for all his hatred, had defended her claim when it mattered. It wasn't acceptance, wasn't even friendship. But it was progress, and maybe, in a place this hard, progress was the best she could hope for. The next few days brought a flurry of activity. Word of Jackson's theft spread through the territory like wildfire. Buyers were more cautious, hands were more loyal, and the ranches were more vigilant. Caleb paid McCready the promised money, and the two men seemed to reach an uneasy truce, not friendship, but mutual respect. Lin May found herself suddenly visible in a way she hadn't been before. The hands who'd ignored her now nodded when she passed. Luis started teaching her to rope, saying she'd need the skill if she was going to keep checking fence lines. Even some of the white workers stopped treating her like a ghost. But visibility came with pressure. A week after Jackson's exposure, Caleb announced that investors were coming to the ranch. 3 men from back east who were considering putting money into expanding the operation. They'd stay for 2 days, inspect the land, review the books, and decide if Turner Ranch was worth their capital. "I need you there," Caleb told Lin May. "At the dinners, the tours. They'll want to meet my wife." Lin May's stomach dropped. "Why?" "I don't know anything about investments or business." "Because they're going to judge me based on everything they see, including my personal life. If you're not there, they'll wonder why. If you're there and you're..." He trailed off, searching for words. "If I'm not embarrassing," Lin May finished flatly. "I wasn't going to put it that way." "But that's what you meant." Caleb sighed. "These men have money and old-fashioned ideas. I need to prove the ranch is stable, well-run, respectable. Your being there shows I have a proper household, not just a bachelor operation. And after what happened with Jackson, they're going to ask about it. Better they hear it from us than from gossip." "You want me to be decoration," Lin May said. "Smile and pour tea and prove you're a family man." "I want you to be yourself," Caleb countered. "Because yourself is someone who spotted a thief when no one else did. Someone who works harder than half my hands. Someone who isn't afraid to speak up." He paused. "But yes, I also need you to show them that this ranch is civilized, that we're worth investing in." Lin May wanted to refuse. The thought of being paraded in front of wealthy strangers, judged for her appearance and manners, made her skin crawl. But Caleb was looking at her with something close to desperation. This investment clearly mattered. The ranch needed it. And she told him she wasn't leaving, told him she wanted to prove herself. "Fine," she said, "but I need a better dress. And Mrs. Kowalski's help with proper dinner service. I don't know what forks to use or how to make polite conversation with investors." Relief flooded Caleb's face. "Done. Whatever you need." What followed was 3 days of intensive preparation that made Lin May feel like she was preparing for battle. Mrs. Kowalski drilled her on table settings and meal service. Caleb bought her 2 new dresses from town, simple but well-made, the kind a rancher's wife might actually wear. Chen taught her enough Cantonese phrases to impress educated men who might know a few words. Even Elijah contributed, grudgingly coaching her on the ranch's history and operations so she could speak intelligently if asked. "Don't volunteer information," Elijah instructed, wheeling back and forth in the parlor while Lin May practiced sitting with proper posture. "Answer questions directly but briefly. Don't apologize for who you are, but don't draw attention to it either. These men will look for weaknesses. Don't give them ammunition." It was the most he'd ever spoken to her. Lin May absorbed every word, understanding that this was his way of protecting the ranch. He still didn't like her, but he needed this investment, and he was pragmatic enough to help her succeed. The investors arrived on a Thursday afternoon in a rented carriage. 3 men in expensive suits, looking completely out of place against the rough frontier backdrop. Caleb greeted them warmly, introduced Lin May with careful formality, and guided them on a tour of the operation. Lin May watched from the porch as they inspected the barns, the cattle, the fields. Watched Caleb point out improvements, expansions, potential. Watched the investors take notes, ask questions, calculate value. When they returned for dinner, Lin May had the table set perfectly, Mrs. Kowalski's coaching paying off. The meal was beef stew, bread, vegetables from the garden. Simple food, but well prepared and beautifully presented. Lin May served, poured wine, and spoke only when addressed. The investors were polite but distant. They asked about the ranch's history, its profitability, its challenges. Caleb answered with confidence, showing them ledgers and projections. Elijah added gravitas, his presence lending weight to Caleb's claims. And then the oldest investor, a silver-haired man named Morrison, turned to Lin May. "Mrs. Turner," he said pleasantly, "your husband tells us you've been quite involved in ranch operations. Is that true?" Lin May felt every eye turn to her. This was a test. She could feel it. I help where I can, she said carefully. I'm still learning, but Mr. Turner has been generous in teaching me. And you were instrumental in identifying a thief, we're told? I noticed inconsistencies, Lin May said, and spoke up. Others confirmed the evidence. Morrison smiled. Modest. That's refreshing. Tell me, what do you think of your husband's expansion plans? This was dangerous territory. Lin May glanced at Caleb, who gave the tiniest nod. Permission to speak honestly. I think they're ambitious, she said, but this land can support more cattle if it's managed carefully. The water rights are secure, the grazing is good, and Mr. Turner runs efficient operations. The risk is weather and market prices, but those are always risks in this business. The investors exchanged glances. Morrison leaned back in his chair. You've learned a lot in a short time, Mrs. Turner. I pay attention, Lin May said simply. The conversation moved on, but Lin May caught Morrison watching her throughout the meal. Not hostile, exactly, evaluating. When dinner ended and the men retired to Caleb's office for drinks and business talk, Mrs. Kowalski pulled Lin May aside. You did good, she whispered. Very good. They did not expect you to be smart. I'm not sure if that's a compliment, Lin May said. Is both compliment and warning. Men like that, they either respect intelligence or fear it. We see which tomorrow. Tomorrow brought more tours, more questions, more evaluation. The investors rode out to see the northern range, inspected fence lines and water sources, talked to the hands. Lin May watched from a distance, her stomach in knots. That evening, as the sun set and the investors prepared to leave the next morning, Morrison requested a final meeting. Caleb, Elijah, and Lin May gathered in the parlor while the three investors stood near the fireplace. Mr. Turner, Morrison began, we've been impressed with what we've seen. Your operation is solid, your expansion plans are sound, and your financial projections are reasonable. Lin May felt hope bloom in her chest. But Morrison wasn't finished. However, he continued, we have concerns about certain choices you've made. The room went cold. Caleb's face hardened. What concerns? Your labor force is unconventional, Morrison said carefully. A mix of races that some might find troubling. And your marriage, while certainly your personal business, does raise questions about judgment and social standing. My marriage is no one's business but mine, Caleb said, his voice dangerously quiet. In principle, I agree, Morrison said, but in practice, Mr. Turner, perception matters. Are investors back east? They have certain expectations about the men they fund, and a man who makes unconventional personal choices may make unconventional business choices as well. Elijah made a disgusted noise. This is about my daughter-in-law being Chinese. It's about stability, Morrison said, about whether this ranch can maintain its reputation and operations in the long term. We're not saying we won't invest, but we need assurances. What kind of assurances? Caleb demanded. Morrison looked uncomfortable. Perhaps if Mrs. Turner were to remain less visible, if the day-to-day operations were handled without her involvement. No. Caleb's voice cut through the room like a blade. My wife works on this ranch because she's capable and willing. I won't hide her to make you comfortable. Mr. Turner, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You want to invest in this ranch, you invest in all of it, including my choices about who I marry and who I trust to help run the operation. Caleb stood, his posture rigid. If that's a problem, there's the door. The investors exchanged shocked glances. Morrison's expression tightened. You're turning down our capital over this? I'm telling you the terms, Caleb said. You accept them or you don't. But I won't build this ranch on compromise and shame. Lin May sat frozen, barely breathing. Caleb was throwing away a fortune, throwing away the expansion he'd planned, the future he'd worked for, because these men had insulted her. She should stop him, should tell him to take the deal, that she didn't mind staying invisible. That was what a good wife would do. But the words wouldn't come. Morrison looked at his colleagues, some silent communication passing between them. Then he turned back to Caleb. You're either incredibly principled or incredibly foolish, he said. I'm not sure which. Does it matter? Caleb asked. Perhaps not. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, small and grudging but genuine. All right, Mr. Turner, you've made your position clear, and honestly, a man who won't compromise his principles for money is exactly the kind of man we should be investing in. He extended his hand. You have your funding. On your terms. The shock in the room was palpable. Caleb shook Morrison's hand, looking as stunned as Lin May felt. Elijah actually laughed, a sound of pure disbelief. Really? Caleb managed. Really? Morrison confirmed. Though I'll admit you took a hell of a risk. If I were a different kind of man, you'd be escorting us off your land right now. He glanced at Lin May. Your wife spoke intelligently yesterday. She spotted a thief. She works. Those are qualities worth respecting, regardless of where she came from. And a man willing to fight for his wife is a man who'll fight for his business interests. He paused. Besides, my own wife is Irish. My family threatened to disown me when we married. I understand choosing love over approval. Lin May's throat tightened. The stranger, this investor she'd been terrified of, was defending her, accepting her. It felt surreal. The investors left the next morning with contracts signed and promises of capital arriving within the month. As their carriage disappeared down the road, Caleb turned to Lin May. You could have told me to take their deal, he said. Could have said you didn't mind staying invisible. I know, Lin May said. But you didn't. No. Why not? Lin May thought about it. About all the years she'd stayed silent, made herself small, accepted whatever scraps she was given. About the woman she'd been when she left her family's house, and the woman she was becoming here on this harsh, beautiful land. Because I'm done being invisible, she said finally. If that costs us, then it costs us. But I won't disappear just to make other people comfortable. Not anymore. Caleb smiled, that real smile she was starting to recognize. Good, he said, because we're going to need that stubbornness for what comes next. He was right. The investment changed everything. With capital, Caleb could expand, buy more cattle, hire more hands, improve the infrastructure. The ranch was growing, and with growth came new challenges, new conflicts, new people to win over or fight against. But Lin May had discovered something in herself through this crisis. She'd found her voice, found the courage to use it, even when the cost might be devastating. And she'd learned that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, standing firm paid off more than bending did. The ranch still didn't fully accept her. The town still whispered. Elijah still looked at her with barely concealed resentment most days. But she'd proven she belonged here in a way that couldn't be undone. She was Lin May Turner, wife to a rancher, voice of truth when lies threatened. And whatever came next, she'd face it standing upright, not cowering in corners waiting to be invisible. That, she decided, was worth every hard day, every cutting word, every moment of doubt. Because for the first time in her life, she mattered. And nothing was going to take that away from her. The investment money arrived in stages over the following weeks, and with it came transformation. Caleb hired 6 new hands, expanded the northern pasture, and purchased breeding stock that cost more than Lin May had earned in her entire life back in town. The ranch hummed with activity from dawn until well past dark, everyone working to make the expansion succeed. Lin May found herself pulled into the operations in ways she'd never expected. Caleb started asking her opinion on purchases, on hiring decisions, on which pastures to rotate. At first she thought he was being polite, including her out of obligation. But then she realized he was actually listening to her answers, acting on her suggestions. When she pointed out that the new bunkhouse should be built closer to the well to save the hands from hauling water, he changed the plans. When she suggested hiring a hand who spoke both Spanish and English to help bridge communication gaps, he did it. You see things I miss, Caleb explained one evening when she questioned why he kept asking her. You notice people. I notice cattle and land. Between us, we catch more problems before they become disasters. It was the closest he'd come to calling them a team. The expanded operation brought prosperity, but it also brought scrutiny. Other ranchers watched Turner Ranch's growth with a mixture of admiration and suspicion. The town talked, and some people didn't like what they saw. Lin May first sensed the new trouble on a trip to town for supplies. She'd gone alone. Caleb was dealing with a difficult calving, and Mrs. Kowalski needed flour and sugar urgently. Lin May drove the wagon herself now, comfortable with the horses and the route. The general store was crowded when she arrived, Several townswomen clustered near the fabric section. Their conversation died the moment Lin May walked in. Morrison, the proprietor, gave her his usual grudging nod. "Mrs. Turner, what do you need?" 50 pounds of flour, 20 of sugar, coffee, and salt, Lin May said, pulling out the list Mrs. Kowalski had written. "That's a lot of supplies," one of the women said loudly. Virginia Hastings, looking as sharply dressed as always. "I suppose with all those new workers, your husband's going through provisions fast." "The ranch is growing," Lin May said evenly. "Oh, we've all noticed," Virginia said, her smile cutting. "Hard to miss when Turner Ranch keeps buying up land. My husband at the bank says your husband's leveraged quite heavily. All that expansion must be risky." Lin May forced herself to stay calm. "Every business has risk. Mr. Turner knows what he's doing." "Does he?" Virginia moved closer, lowering her voice so only Lin May could hear. "Or is he so distracted by trying to prove something that he's making foolish choices? All this expansion, all these new workers, it's going to collapse. And when it does, everyone will know it started when he married you." The words hit like physical blows. Lin May's hands clenched around the shopping list, crumpling it. She wanted to snap back to defend Caleb and the ranch. But Virginia was baiting her, waiting for her to lose control in front of witnesses. "My order, Mr. Morrison," Lin May said instead, turning her back on Virginia. "As quickly as possible, please." She could feel Virginia's satisfaction at having gotten under her skin, could hear the woman's whispered comments to her companions, the soft laughter that followed. Lin May focused on breathing evenly, on not showing how much it hurt. Morrison loaded her supplies with unusual speed. Maybe he felt bad for her, or maybe he just wanted her gone before a scene developed. Lin May paid, loaded the wagon herself despite the weight of the flour sacks, and drove away with her head high and her stomach churning. She was halfway back to the ranch when she saw the rider approaching fast from the east. Chen, on one of the ranch horses, riding hard. He pulled up beside the wagon, his face grim. "Mrs. Turner, you need to come quick," he said, breathing hard. "There's trouble at the ranch, big trouble." Lin May's heart jumped. What kind of trouble? "Men came, saying they have claim on the north section the land boss just bought. They have papers, lawyers. Boss is there now, but it's getting heated." Lin May snapped the reins, urging the wagon horses faster. Chen rode alongside, and they covered the remaining distance in tense silence. As they approached the ranch, Lin May could see the cluster of men near the main house. Caleb, Elijah, several ranch hands, and 3 strangers in suits. One was holding papers, waving them in Caleb's face. Lin May pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down. Caleb saw her, and his expression tightened. He didn't want her involved in this, but she was already walking toward the group, Chen beside her. "Clear as day," the man with papers was saying. "This land was granted to the Westbrook family in 1855. Your father purchased the adjacent property, but this section was never his to sell." "That's a lie," Elijah snarled from his wheelchair. "I bought that land fair and square from Thomas Westbrook himself 30 years ago. I have the deed." "You have a fraudulent deed," the man said. "Thomas Westbrook never owned this land. His brother Samuel did, and Samuel's son Henry," he gestured to a younger man standing beside him, "is the rightful owner. We have the original land grant to prove it." Caleb's jaw was tight. "Show me." The man unrolled a yellow document, and Lin May moved closer to see. It looked official, government seals, formal language, a description of boundaries that did seem to match the northern section. But something about it felt wrong. The paper was too clean for something supposedly 70 years old. The ink was dark, unfaded. "This is a forgery," Lin May said before she could stop herself. Everyone turned to stare at her. The man with the document drew himself up indignantly. "Excuse me?" "The paper's wrong," Lin May said, her mind racing. "Land grants from 1855 would be more faded. The ink would have yellowed. And this seal," she pointed to the official-looking stamp, "it's too crisp, too perfect." "What would you know about official documents?" the man demanded. "I know paper," Lin May shot back. "I worked in a laundry for years. We handled every kind of document. Banknotes, letters, legal papers. They all age the same way. This paper isn't 70 years old, maybe 7 months." The man's face reddened. "This is absurd. You're going to take the word of some Chinese laundress over legal documentation?" "I'm taking her word over yours," Caleb said, stepping forward, Because she's right. That paper looks wrong. And convenient timing, wouldn't you say? Right after we secure investment and buy the land, suddenly someone shows up claiming prior ownership? The timing is irrelevant to the law, the man said stiffly. We have proof of ownership. You have 30 days to vacate the property, or we'll seek enforcement through the courts. Do it, Elijah said coldly. Take us to court. Because when a judge looks at your fake document and our genuine deed, you're going to find yourself in a jail cell for fraud. The confrontation ended with threats and promises of legal action on both sides. The three men left, but the tension remained. Caleb gathered the ranch hands and explained the situation. Someone was trying to steal the northern section, the most valuable grazing land on the property, using forged documents. They needed to be vigilant, watch for any attempt to sabotage or intimidate. After the hands dispersed, Caleb found Lin May in the kitchen where she was helping Mrs. Kowalski put away the supplies she'd bought. Thank you, he said, for noticing the forgery. I might be wrong, Lin May said. I'm not an expert. But you're probably right. And even if you're wrong, you gave us grounds to fight back. He rubbed his face. This is going to get ugly. If they're willing to forge land grants, they'll try other things. Intimidation, sabotage, maybe violence. Why? Lin May asked. Why go to this much trouble for one section of land? Because it's the best land in the territory, Elijah said, wheeling into the kitchen. Water rights, grazing, proximity to the rail line. Whoever controls that land controls a significant portion of the cattle trade in this region. He looked at Caleb. Someone wants us gone, or at least wants us weak enough to buy out cheap. Who? Lin May asked. The old man and his son exchanged glances. Could be several people, Caleb said. Other ranchers who want to expand, land speculators, maybe even the railroad, looking to secure right-of-way without paying full value. Or, Elijah added darkly, someone who's been waiting for an opportunity to strike. Someone who sees our recent growth as vulnerability instead of strength. The implications were chilling. Lin May thought about Virginia's comments in the store about how the ranch was leveraged, how expansion was risky. Had that been just gossip, or had Virginia known something was coming? Over the following days, evidence of the plot began to emerge. Luis discovered survey stakes on the northern property, clearly recent. Chen found tracks suggesting someone had been watching the ranch from the hills. And then came the anonymous letters, delivered to other ranchers in the territory, suggesting that Turner Ranch had obtained the northern land through fraud and that Caleb Turner couldn't be trusted. They're trying to turn everyone against us, Caleb said, staring at the letters spread across his desk. Destroy our reputation before the court case even begins. Will it work? Lin May asked. Maybe. People already have opinions about me. About you. This gives them justification to act on those opinions. He looked exhausted, older than his years. Morrison's refusing me credit at the store. Says he can't extend to someone who might be a fraud. 2 of our new hands quit yesterday, said they didn't want to work for a ranch that might not exist in a month. Lin May felt anger building in her chest. We need to fight back, prove the document is forged. I've sent it to a document examiner in Denver, Caleb said, but that takes time. Meanwhile, we're bleeding credibility and resources. That night, Lin May couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed listening to the wind rattle the windows and thought about everything they were facing. The forged land grant, the rumors, the isolation. It felt like the world was closing in, trying to crush them for daring to succeed. She must have dozed eventually because she woke to shouting and the smell of smoke. Lin May bolted from bed, threw on her robe and ran to the window. Orange light flickered against the darkness. Fire, coming from the direction of the northern pasture. She could hear men yelling, horses neighing in panic. She didn't think, just ran downstairs and outside, where chaos had erupted. The northern fence line was burning, flames racing along the dry wood posts. Ranch hands were running with buckets, but the fire was spreading faster than they could control. "The cattle!" someone shouted. "They're going to stampede." Indeed, the herd in the northern pasture was panicking, bunching together in fear. If they stampeded, they'd tear through fencing, destroy property, possibly kill themselves or the hands trying to control them. Caleb appeared on horseback, shouting orders. "Get the cattle moving south, away from the fire. Luis, take your crew and start a fire break. Chen, get the wagons. We need more water." Lin Mei ran to help, ignoring the heat, the smoke, the danger. She joined the bucket brigade, hauling water from the well until her arms screamed. She watched Luis and his crew desperately digging a trench to stop the fire's spread. She saw Caleb and several hands riding into the smoke to turn the panicked cattle. It took hours. Hours of brutal, terrifying work in the dark. By the time the fire was finally contained, the eastern sky was lightening with dawn. The northern fence line was destroyed, at least 30 posts burned to nothing. Several acres of grazing land were scorched, and 3 head of cattle were dead, trampled in the initial panic. The exhausted hands gathered near the ruins of the fence. Everyone was covered in soot and ash, coughing from the smoke. Caleb dismounted slowly, looking at the destruction with an expression Lin Mei had never seen before. Not anger, defeat. This was deliberate, Luis said, holding up a half-burned torch. Found it at the starting point. Someone set this. Who? One of the younger hands demanded. Same people trying to steal our land, Elijah said. He'd wheeled himself out to survey the damage, his face carved from stone. They're trying to bankrupt us, drive us off. It's working, Caleb said quietly. We just lost thousands in fencing, land, and cattle. The insurance won't cover arson without proof of who did it. And we're already stretched thin from the expansion. We rebuild, Elijah said firmly. We don't let them win. With what money? Caleb turned to his father, and Lin Mei saw the desperation in his face. We're leveraged to the limit. The investment money's committed to other expenses. We don't have capital to rebuild this and fight a legal battle and maintain operations. Then we sell something, Elijah said. Sell what? The only thing we have left to sell is the northern land itself, the thing they're trying to take. The argument continued, voices rising. The hands shuffled uncomfortably, clearly worried about their own futures. If the ranch collapsed, they'd all be looking for work. Lin Mei stood apart, her mind working. There had to be a way out of this. Some angle they weren't seeing. The people behind this, they wanted Turner Ranch desperate, wanted Caleb to make a panicked decision, sell cheap, give up the fight. And suddenly, Lin Mei understood. This wasn't just about land, it was about power. About proving that someone like Caleb, someone who'd made unconventional choices, hired diverse workers, married outside his race, couldn't succeed. If Turner Ranch fell, it would confirm every prejudice, every doubt. It would prove that the old ways were the only ways. No, Lin Mei said, loud enough to cut through the argument. Everyone turned to look at her. Caleb's expression was strained. Lin Mei, not now. No, she repeated, stepping forward. We're not selling, we're not giving up, because that's exactly what they want. They want us desperate and broken so they can take everything we've built. We can't fight without money, Caleb said tiredly. Then we find money another way. Lin Mei's mind raced. The investors, Morrison and his partners. They believed in this ranch enough to fund it. Maybe they'll believe enough to help us now. Why would they throw good money after bad? Elijah demanded. Because if we lose, they lose too, Lin Mei said. Their investment becomes worthless if the ranch collapses. And if this land grab succeeds, it sets a precedent. Anyone with forged papers and enough intimidation can steal property. That threatens every landowner in the territory. Caleb stared at her. You want us to ask the investors to fund our legal defense? I want us to show them this isn't just our problem. It's everyone's problem. Lin Mei could see it now, the path forward. And we don't just ask them for money. We ask them to use their influence. They have connections, power. They can pressure the courts to expedite the case, can expose the forgery faster than we could alone. That's assuming they'll help, Caleb said. They might just cut their losses. Or they might see this as a test, Lin Mei countered. Morrison said he invested because you wouldn't compromise your principles for money. Well, this is bigger than principles. This is survival. And if he meant what he said about respecting a man who fights for what he believes in, now's the time to prove it. The gathered hands were watching this exchange like spectators at a prize fight. Elijah's expression was unreadable. Caleb looked at the destroyed fence line, at the scorched earth, at his exhausted workers. Then he looked at Lin Mei. All right, he said, we try it your way. But if this fails, we're no worse off than we are now, Lin Mei finished. Caleb left for Denver that same day, taking the forged land grant and documentation of the fire. Lin Mei stayed to help coordinate the ranch operations in his absence. It was strange being the one the hands came to with questions, the one making decisions about work rotations and supply orders. But she did it, drawing on everything she'd learned in the past months. Elijah watched her manage things with an expression that was becoming less hostile and more resigned, like he'd finally accepted that she wasn't going anywhere. On the third day, one of the hands came running to find her in the garden. "Mrs. Turner! Riders coming! A lot of them!" Lin May's heart jumped. She dropped her basket of vegetables and ran to the front of the house. At least 20 riders were approaching, too many to be friendly. She signaled for Chen to gather the other hands, to be ready for trouble. But as the riders got closer, Lin May recognized the man in front. Morrison, the investor from Denver. And beside him, several other well-dressed men she didn't know. Behind them, a group that looked official. Maybe lawyers, maybe lawmen. Morrison dismounted as his group reached the house. He looked around at the burned fence line, the signs of the fire, the defensive posture of the ranch hands. Then he looked at Lin May. "Mrs. Turner," he said, "where's your husband?" "In Denver," Lin May said carefully. "Trying to find you." Morrison smiled grimly. "Well, he found us. Or rather, we found him. And after hearing what's been happening here, we decided to come see for ourselves." "Who are these people?" Lin May gestured to the group behind him. "Investors, mostly. Men with holdings in this territory who don't appreciate fraud and intimidation. And these," he indicated the official-looking group, "are lawyers and a federal marshal. We're here to put an end to this land grab." Relief washed through Lin May so powerfully she almost swayed. "The land grant is forged?" "Obviously forged," one of the lawyers said. "Our document examiner confirmed it in less than an hour. The paper's wrong, the seal's wrong. Even the handwriting is inconsistent with period documents. Whoever made it was counting on no one looking too closely." "And the men who presented it?" Lin May asked. "In custody," the marshal said. "Arrested this morning in Denver when they tried to file their court claim. They're talking plenty now that they know they're facing fraud charges. Named the man who hired them, local land speculator named Jeffries. Has a history of this kind of scheme." "Jeffries," Elijah said from the porch. Lin May hadn't noticed him wheeling himself out. "I know that name. He tried to buy the northern section from me 15 years ago. I refused. Guess he held a grudge." Morrison climbed the porch steps, standing in front of Elijah. "Mr. Turner, your son told us what happened here. The fire, the intimidation, the financial pressure. We're prepared to offer additional support to help you rebuild and pursue charges against everyone involved." "Why?" Elijah asked bluntly. "We're just one ranch." "Because this isn't just business anymore," Morrison said. "It's principle. Men like Jeffries, they think they can steal from anyone too weak to fight back. They think unconventional operations like your son's are easy targets." He glanced at Lin May. "They think a ranch run by a man with a Chinese wife can't possibly have powerful friends. They're wrong, and we're going to make sure everyone knows it." The vindication should have felt sweet, but Lin May just felt tired. Tired of fighting, tired of proving herself, tired of being the reason people tried to tear them down. Morrison seemed to sense her exhaustion. "Mrs. Turner, I want you to know your husband spoke very highly of you in Denver. Said you spotted the forgery first, that you convinced him to reach out to us instead of giving up. He credits you with saving this ranch." "He's being generous," Lin May said. "No," Elijah said from his wheelchair. "He's being honest." The old man looked at her, and for the first time there was something like respect in his eyes. "You've proven yourself, girl, more than I ever thought you would, more than you should have had to." It wasn't an apology for months of cruelty. Wasn't even an admission that he'd been wrong about her. But coming from Elijah Turner, it was as close as Lin May was likely to get. Over the next few days, the ranch transformed. Workers arrived to repair the fence line, paid for by Morrison's group. The lawyers filed charges against Jeffries and his associates. The federal marshal stayed to ensure no further intimidation attempts. And the word spread through the territory. Turner Ranch had powerful backers, and anyone trying to steal from them would face consequences. Caleb returned from Denver looking 10 years younger, the weight of desperation lifted from his shoulders. He found Lin May in the stable, checking on the horses. "We did it," he said simply. "Morrison and his people did it. Lin May corrected. Because you told me to ask them. Caleb leaned against the stall door. I was ready to give up, to sell and cut our losses. You saw a way forward when I couldn't. Lin May didn't know what to say to that. She focused on brushing the horse, the repetitive motion soothing. I'm moving your things to the master bedroom, Caleb said quietly. Lin May's hands stilled. She turned to look at him, heart hammering. What? We've been married almost 6 months, Caleb said. And in that time, you've proven yourself more than any wife I could have asked for. You work harder than most of my hands. You spot problems I miss. You saved this ranch twice now, once from Jackson, once from Jeffries. He paused. I know I married you for practical reasons. I know this wasn't a love match, but we're partners now, real partners, and I think we could be more. If you wanted. Lin May's throat tightened. This man had given her a chance when she had nothing, had defended her to investors and family, had stood by her when the easy choice would have been to send her away. She didn't love him. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the romantic sense. But she respected him, trusted him. And that was more than she'd ever expected to have. All right, she said softly. Caleb smiled, that real smile she'd come to value. All right. That night, Lin May moved her few possessions into the master bedroom. It felt strange sharing space with Caleb after months of separation. Strange but not unwelcome. They were cautious with each other, careful, but there was a warmth that hadn't existed before. The ranch settled into its new reality over the following weeks. The northern section was secure, the fence rebuilt, operations expanding as planned. The hands worked with renewed confidence. Even the town began to change its tune. Hard to maintain gossip when federal marshals had proven the Turners were victims of a criminal conspiracy. Virginia Hastings made one last attempt at superiority when Lin May next came to town. But this time, Morrison's wife was in the store. She'd come west to see her husband's investment property. And she cut Virginia off mid-insult. Mrs. Turner, Morrison's wife said warmly, it's lovely to see you again. James tells me you've been instrumental in protecting our investment. We're so grateful. Virginia's face went through several interesting colors. Lin May simply smiled and continued her shopping. The victory wasn't complete. There were still people who didn't accept her, still moments of casual cruelty and deliberate exclusion. But Lin May had learned something crucial. She didn't need everyone's acceptance. She needed her own strength, the respect of people who mattered, and the knowledge that she'd earned her place through work and courage. One evening, as Lin May and Caleb sat on the porch watching the sunset, Elijah wheeled himself out to join them. He was quiet for a while, just watching the land he'd built his life on. You know, he said finally, I fought this marriage, fought everything my son changed, thought he was destroying what I'd built. I know, Lin May said. I was wrong. The admission clearly cost him. Not about everything. Still think some of his choices are foolish. But about you. I was wrong. You're stronger than I gave you credit for, smarter, more valuable to this operation than I wanted to admit. It wasn't an apology. Elijah Turner didn't apologize. But it was acknowledgement, recognition, and from him, that meant something. Thank you, Lin May said. The old man nodded once, then wheeled himself back inside, leaving Lin May and Caleb alone on the porch. The ranch stretched out before them, golden in the fading light. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. A horse whinnied in the corral. The sounds of a working ranch, a living operation. Lin May thought about the girl who'd stood in a shabby parlor months ago, face stinging from her father's slap, accepting a stranger's proposal because she had nothing left to lose. That girl had been so scared, so certain she'd fail. But she hadn't failed. She'd survived. More than survived. She'd become essential. Had proven that the things people dismissed about her, her background, her race, her gender, didn't define her capability, didn't limit what she could accomplish. What are you thinking? Caleb asked. That I'm glad I said yes, Lin May answered honestly. That day in my father's house. I'm glad I chose this. Caleb reached over and took her hand, calloused meeting calloused, two people who knew the value of hard work. So am I. The sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and deep blue. Night was coming, and with it would come new challenges, new battles to fight. But for now, in this moment, Lin May allowed herself to feel something she'd never felt before. Peace. Belonging. Home. She'd walked into hell to escape being nothing, and she'd discovered she was capable of surviving anything, of becoming someone who mattered, someone who couldn't be ignored or dismissed or pushed aside. The slap that had echoed across her father's parlor felt like a lifetime ago. That girl who'd stood there, invisible and worthless, was gone. In her place stood Lynn May Turner, rancher's wife, problem solver, survivor. And the world that had tried to break her was learning, slowly and painfully, that she was unbreakable. 6 months later, Lynn May stood in the rebuilt northern pasture watching a crew of workers drive fence posts into ground that had once been scorched black. New grass had grown over the burn scars, green and defiant. The land remembered the fire, but it had moved past it, healed. She understood that feeling. The ranch had transformed in ways that went beyond physical reconstruction. The expansion Caleb had planned was now reality. 300 head of new cattle, 2 additional bunkhouses, a proper irrigation system that tripled the garden's output. But more than that, the operation had shifted in character. Chen now supervised a crew of 8 workers, making decisions about rotations and assignments that Caleb trusted without question. Luis had been promoted to foreman, his authority respected by every hand regardless of background. And Lynn May herself had become what Caleb called his second set of eyes. The person who caught problems before they escalated, who mediated disputes, who kept the human side of the operation running smoothly. She'd earned that role one hard day at a time. "Mrs. Turner!" One of the younger hands, a Mexican boy named Miguel, was running toward her from the direction of the house. "There's a visitor. Woman asking for you specifically." Lynn May's stomach tightened instinctively. Visitors asking for her usually meant trouble, but she thanked Miguel and walked back to the house, brushing dust from her work dress. She'd stopped wearing the nice dresses except for special occasions. Out here, practicality mattered more than appearance. The woman waiting on the porch was a stranger, middle-aged, well-dressed, but travel-worn, with a carpet bag at her feet. She turned as Lynn May approached, and something in her face was familiar, the shape of the eyes, the set of the jaw. "Lynn May," the woman said in Cantonese. "You don't remember me, do you?" Lynn May searched her memory, and then it clicked. "Aunt Hua? My mother's sister?" "Yes." The woman's smile was tired. "I wasn't sure you'd recognize me. It's been many years." Lynn May had dim memories of Aunt Hua from childhood, her mother's younger sister who'd left for San Francisco when Lynn May was maybe 7 or 8. There'd been some family scandal, something about an unsuitable marriage that had caused a rift. Lynn May's mother had refused to speak of her after that. "What are you doing here?" Lynn May asked, not unkindly but confused. "Looking for family," Aunt Hua said simply. "My husband died last winter, cholera. We had a laundry in San Francisco, but I couldn't run it alone, and his family, they never accepted me. So I sold everything and came looking for my sister, to see if—" She trailed off, and Lynn May saw the hope and fear in her eyes. "To see if she'd forgive me. Take me in." Lynn May's heart sank. "You went to see my mother?" "This morning," Aunt Hua's voice went flat. "Your father answered the door. When he saw who I was, he told me I wasn't welcome, said my sister wanted nothing to do with me, told me to leave and never come back." She paused. "But then Mei Ling came out, your sister. She told me what happened to you, that you married a rancher. She said—" Aunt Hua's expression twisted. "She said you'd gotten lucky, escaped the family you deserved." That sounded exactly like Mei Ling. Lynn May could picture her sister's poisonous smile as she'd said it, the satisfaction at knowing Lynn May's own aunt had been turned away. "I'm sorry," Lynn May said. My family they're difficult." "They're cruel," Aunt Hua corrected. "I remembered your mother being hard, but what I saw today—" She shook her head. "I shouldn't have come here. You owe me nothing. We barely know each other, but I had nowhere else to go, and I thought—" She picked up her carpet bag. "I'm sorry to have bothered you." "Wait!" Lynn May surprised herself with the word. Aunt Hua paused, looking back with desperate hope. And Lynn May thought about that day 6 months ago when she'd stood in her father's parlor with nothing but a stranger's offer and her own desperate need to escape. Thought about Caleb giving her a chance when he could have chosen someone easier, someone who'd cause less trouble. "Stay for dinner at least," Lynn May said. "Let me talk to my husband." Relief flooded Aunt Hua's face. "Thank you." Thank you so much. Lin Mei found Caleb in his office, going over the month's accounts with Elijah. Both men looked up as she entered, and she explained the situation quickly. Caleb listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. Your aunt needs work, he said when she finished, not charity. Yes, Lin Mei agreed. Seeing. Mrs. Kowalski's been saying she needs help in the kitchen, Elijah said unexpectedly. Woman's getting older, can't do everything herself anymore. If this aunt of yours can cook and clean, there's a place for her here. Lin Mei stared at her father-in-law. Elijah had been civil to her for months now, even occasionally kind, but she'd never expected him to offer help to another Chinese woman without being asked. What? Elijah said, catching her expression. It's practical. We need kitchen help. Your aunt needs work, simple business. But it wasn't simple, and they all knew it. It was Elijah choosing to extend the same chance to Aunt Hua that Caleb had extended to Lin Mei. It was the old man admitting, in his roundabout way, that maybe the people he'd once dismissed were worth helping. Aunt Hua stayed. She moved into a small room next to Mrs. Kowalski's quarters and threw herself into work with the desperate energy of someone who'd been drowning and suddenly found solid ground. She was good at her job, efficient, organized, and surprisingly good with the ranch hands, who appreciated her cooking more than Mrs. Kowalski's heavy Polish fare. But more than that, Aunt Hua became someone Lin Mei could talk to, someone who understood the weight of family rejection, the loneliness of being foreign in a hostile place. They'd sit together in the evenings, speaking Cantonese while preparing the next day's meals, and Lin Mei felt a connection she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Your mother made a terrible mistake turning you out, Aunt Hua said one night, kneading dough with practiced hands. You've become someone remarkable. I've just survived, Lin Mei said. That's what remarkable means for women like us, Aunt Hua replied. Survival is victory. The word stayed with Lin Mei, settling into her bones like truth. Summer turned to fall, and the ranch thrived. The cattle were healthy, the land productive, the workers stable and reasonably content. Morrison and his fellow investors visited twice more, each time expressing satisfaction with their returns. The town had mostly stopped gossiping, or at least had found new targets for their judgment. Even Virginia Hastings had gone quiet, though Lin Mei suspected that was more because her husband's bank was now financing part of Turner Ranch's expansion than from any genuine change of heart. Lin Mei should have felt satisfied, content. She'd achieved more than she'd ever dreamed possible back in her father's house. She had respect, purpose, a partnership with Caleb that was growing into something deeper and more genuine. She had Aunt Hua, Mrs. Kowalski, Chen, Luis, people who valued her. But something nagged at her, an unfinished piece of her past that wouldn't let her rest. It came to a head on a cold October morning when Chen found her in the barn. Mrs. Turner, there's a man here to see you, says he's your father. Lin Mei's hand stilled on the bridle she was mending. My father is here? Yes, waiting by the house. He looks... Chen paused, desperate. Lin Mei's first instinct was to refuse to see him, to send him away like he'd sent away Aunt Hua, like he'd dismissed Lin Mei herself for 18 years. But curiosity won out. She followed Chen to the house where her father stood by the porch, hat in his hands, looking older and smaller than she remembered. He saw her and something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe, or just discomfort at having to ask for something. Lin Mei, he said in Cantonese. Mr. Wong, she replied in English. The use of formal address wasn't accidental. He wasn't her father anymore, not in any way that mattered. I need to speak with you, privately. Lin Mei gestured to the porch. They sat on opposite ends of the bench, the distance between them more than physical. Her father looked at the ranch spread out before them, at the obvious signs of prosperity and success. You've done well for yourself, he said finally. What do you want? Lin Mei asked, not interested in small talk. He flinched at her directness. Mei Ling is getting married, a merchant's son from Sacramento. Good family, respectable. The wedding will be expensive. He paused. We need money. Lin Mei almost laughed. You came here to ask me for money? For Mei Ling's wedding? You have it, her father said. Look at this place. You married well. Your husband is rich. Surely you can spare... No. Lin Mei's voice was flat and final. Her father's face reddened. How dare you refuse? I'm your father. I owe you nothing, Lin Mei interrupted. You called me worthless. You hit me for accepting a marriage proposal. You were embarrassed by me, ashamed of me, for 18 years, and now you come here asking for money because your precious Mei Ling needs a fancy wedding. She stood. The answer is no. Now get off my land. Your land? Her father stood too, anger replacing desperation. You forget yourself, girl. You forget who you are. You're nothing but what I've made myself, Lin Mei cut him off. Which is more than you ever were. You ran a failing laundry and blamed everyone else for your problems. Blamed me for being born female. Blamed my mother for not giving you sons. Blamed the world for not recognizing your greatness. She stepped closer. I am not nothing. I'm a rancher's wife, a partner in a successful operation, someone people respect and listen to. And I got here by working harder than you ever did. Her father's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Lin Mei saw Chen watching from the barn, saw Aunt Hua standing in the kitchen doorway, saw Caleb emerging from the office, all of them ready to back her up if needed. Leave, Lin Mei said quietly, and don't come back. You made it clear I wasn't family when I lived in your house. I'm just returning the favor now. Her father looked like he wanted to argue, to rage, to demand. But he was on her territory now, surrounded by her people. And he was smart enough to know he had no power here. He put his hat on, shot her a look of pure hatred, and walked to his wagon. You'll regret this, he called back as he climbed up. When your family is struggling and you did nothing to help, you'll regret it. I already have a family, Lin Mei said, and they're not struggling. She watched him drive away, dust rising behind the wagon. She waited for guilt, for regret, for some sense of filial duty to kick in and make her feel terrible for refusing him. It didn't come. Instead, she felt relief. Freedom. The final tie to her old life had been cut, and she'd been the one holding the knife. Caleb appeared beside her, watching the wagon disappear. You all right? Better than all right, Lin Mei said honestly. That evening, the ranch gathered for dinner. Caleb, Elijah, Lin Mei, Aunt Hua, Mrs. Kowalski, and several of the senior hands who'd become more like family than employees. The table was crowded, the conversation loud and multilingual, everyone talking over each other about the day's work and tomorrow's plans. This was her family now. This collection of people from different backgrounds, different languages, different worlds, all working toward the same goal. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still prejudices that surfaced in small ways, still moments of friction. But it was real, it was chosen, and it was hers. Winter came hard that year, testing everything they'd built. Blizzards isolated the ranch for days at a time. Cattle died despite their best efforts. Equipment broke. The cold found every weakness in buildings and people alike. But they survived it together. The hands took turns manning the night watch, keeping fires going, checking on the herd. Aunt Hua and Mrs. Kowalski kept everyone fed. Chen organized work crews with military efficiency. Luis kept morale up with stories and terrible jokes. Elijah, despite his age and wheelchair, supervised from the house. His decades of experience guiding decisions about when to bring cattle in and when to let them weather it out. And Lin Mei was everywhere, helping birth calves in the freezing barn, hauling firewood, checking on isolated hands, making sure no one was forgotten or overlooked. She worked until exhaustion, then pushed through it, driven by the knowledge that people were counting on her. It was during one of those brutal nights, when the temperature dropped so low that water froze in seconds, that Caleb found her in the barn checking on a sick cow. She was wrapped in blankets, shivering despite the layers, but refusing to abandon the animal. Lin Mei, you need to come inside, he said. You're going to freeze to death out here. The cow needs watching, she argued through chattering teeth. The cow has survived worse. You haven't. He pulled her to her feet. Come on, Miguel can take over. He dragged her back to the house, to their bedroom, where a fire blazed in the hearth. He wrapped her in more blankets, made her drink hot tea that Aunt Hua had left warming by the fire. And then he just sat with her, waiting for the shivers to stop. You're going to work yourself to death, he said quietly. Someone has to, Lin Mei said. Not alone. Caleb took her cold hands in his, rubbing them to restore circulation. You don't have to prove yourself anymore, Lin Mei. Everyone here knows what you're worth. You can stop running so hard. Lin Mei looked at him, this man who'd married her out of necessity and somehow become her partner, her ally, her friend. I don't know how to stop, she admitted. Every time I slow down, I feel like I'm going to lose everything. You won't, Caleb said, because this isn't built on just you anymore. It's built on all of us. The ranch, the workers, the family we've made. You don't have to carry it alone. The words broke something open in Lin Mei's chest. She'd been so focused on being indispensable, on proving she belonged, that she'd forgotten that belonging meant being able to rely on others too, meant trusting that she wouldn't be abandoned if she showed weakness. She leaned against Caleb, letting herself be held, and for the first time in months, maybe years, she let herself just rest. Spring came eventually, the way it always did. The snow melted, the land thawed, and the ranch began another cycle. But something had shifted in Lin Mei. She still worked hard, still contributed, but she'd learned to delegate, to trust, to accept help when it was offered. The change was noticed. Chen commented that she smiled more. Aunt Hua said she looked lighter, less burdened. Even Elijah remarked that she seemed less like she was fighting a war every damn day. And then, on a warm April morning, Lin Mei realized she'd missed her monthly bleeding. Had missed it twice now, actually, though she'd been too busy to notice. She told Aunt Hua first, who confirmed what Lin Mei suspected. "You're pregnant," her aunt said with a smile. "Congratulations." Lin Mei should have been excited, happy, but instead she felt terrified. A baby meant vulnerability, meant something precious that could be taken away, meant becoming responsible for another life when she still sometimes felt like she barely knew how to be responsible for her own. She told Caleb that night and watched his face transform with joy and wonder and fear that probably mirrored her own. "A baby," he said softly. "Our baby." "Are you ready for this?" Lin Mei asked. "No," Caleb admitted, "but I wasn't ready for you either, and that worked out." Despite her fears, Lin Mei laughed. The pregnancy changed things in small ways. The hands became protective, refusing to let her do heavy lifting. Mrs. Kowalski and Aunt Hua fussed over her diet. Elijah started talking about the future in concrete terms, about what they'd teach the child, about legacy, about the ranch continuing past his generation. And Lin Mei, despite her fears, found herself growing excited. This baby would be born into a family that wanted it, would grow up knowing it belonged, that it was valued, would never feel invisible or worthless or like its existence was a burden. She would make sure of that. On a hot July afternoon, Lin Mei gave birth to a daughter. The labor was brutal, 15 hours of pain that made her think she might die. But Aunt Hua was there, coaching her through it in Cantonese. Mrs. Kowalski was there with cool cloths and steady hands, and Caleb was there, looking terrified but refusing to leave. When the baby finally came, small and screaming and perfect, Lin Mei held her and understood what her own mother had never felt. This fierce, protective love that would burn down the world for this tiny person. This certainty that her daughter was precious and valuable and worth everything. "What should we name her?" Caleb asked, staring at the baby with wonder. Lin Mei thought about everything she'd survived, everything she'd overcome, thought about the strength it took to walk away from one life and build another. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." The baby's arrival brought something new to the ranch, a sense of continuity, of future. The workers built a cradle from scrap wood and leather. Aunt Hua sewed blankets, Chen carved toys. Even the roughest hands would stop by to peer at the baby, their weathered faces softening at the sight of something so small and new. Hope was 3 months old when another visitor arrived. This time it was Mei Ling, Lin Mei's sister, looking thin and hollow-eyed in a way that had nothing to do with fashion. Lin Mei met her in the yard, the baby in her arms. Mei Ling stared at the child, then at Lin Mei, then at the obvious prosperity of the ranch. "So it's true," Mei Ling said. "You really did marry well." "What do you want?" Lin Mei asked, too tired for games. Mei Ling's perfect composure cracked. "My wedding was called off. The merchant's son found out about father's debts, about the failed laundry. He said he wouldn't marry into a family with no prospects." Her voice shook. "Mother and father are furious. They blame me for not being charming enough, for not securing him better. I thought—" She looked at Lin Mei with desperate eyes. "I thought maybe you could help. Give me money to start over somewhere. San Francisco maybe, or—" "No," Lin Mei said simply. Mei Ling's face flushed. You owe me. I was always the good daughter. Always did what they wanted, and you got lucky, that's all. You don't deserve this while I have nothing. You're right, Lin Mei said. Mei Ling blinked, surprised. I did get lucky. Caleb could have chosen you instead. But you know what? He didn't. He chose me because I had the hands of a worker and the spine to survive hard things. You've spent your whole life being decorative and cruel. Now you're facing consequences. So you won't help me, Mei Ling said bitterly. I didn't say that. Lin Mei shifted the baby to her other arm. If you want help, you can have it, but not money. Work. You can stay here, work in the kitchen, earn your keep, live like everyone else does, with effort and respect. Mei Ling looked horrified. You want me to be a servant? I want you to learn what it means to be worth something beyond your face, Lin Mei said. You can stay and work, or you can leave. Your choice. Her sister looked at the ranch, at Lin Mei, at the baby, at all the evidence of what hard work and humility had built. I'm not like you, she said finally. I can't do what you do. Then you'll stay not like me, Lin Mei said, and that's fine. But I'm not giving you money to continue being useless somewhere else. Mei Ling left angry and empty-handed. Lin Mei watched her go with something like pity. Her sister had been beautiful and favored and still ended up with nothing because she'd never learned to build anything real. Had never understood that true worth came from what you could do, not what you looked like. As the seasons turned and hope grew, Lin Mei found herself reflecting on everything that had brought her to this point. The slap that had echoed across her father's parlor, the desperate choice to marry a stranger, the brutal work and constant judgment, the fires and thieves and legal battles, every moment that had tested her and forged her into someone stronger. She'd walked away from a family that saw her as worthless and built a new family that saw her truly. Had proven that the girl everyone dismissed was capable of remarkable things, had learned that survival wasn't just about enduring, it was about choosing to thrive despite everything trying to break you. On a crisp autumn evening a year after Hope's birth, Lin Mei stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the land gold and orange. The ranch stretched out before her, prosperous, stable, thriving. Behind her she could hear Caleb playing with Hope, the baby's delighted squeals mixing with his laughter. Could hear Aunt Hua and Mrs. Kowalski arguing good-naturedly about dinner preparations. Could hear the ranch hands finishing their day's work, their voices carrying across the yard. This was her world now. Not perfect, never perfect, but real and earned and hers. Elijah wheeled himself onto the porch, settling beside her. The old man was frailer now, his health declining, but his mind remained sharp. You thinking about the past? He asked. Just realizing how far I've come, Lin Mei said. Elijah was quiet for a moment. I was wrong about you, he said finally. When Caleb first brought you here, I thought you'd be a disaster. Thought you'd ruin everything I'd built. I know. You made me look like a fool, he continued. Made me confront my own prejudices. I didn't like it. Still don't, honestly. He paused. But you saved this ranch, multiple times. And you gave me a granddaughter who will inherit something worth having because you had the courage to fight for it. It was the closest Elijah had ever come to an actual apology. Lin Mei accepted it for what it was. An old man admitting he'd been wrong, in the only way his pride would allow. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me, Elijah said gruffly. Thank yourself. You earned every bit of this. Paid for it in blood and sweat and refusing to quit when quitting would have been easier. He looked at her directly. You're stronger than I ever was. Stronger than Caleb, even, though don't tell him I said so. This ranch is lucky to have you. The words settled into Lin Mei's heart, filling spaces she hadn't known were empty. That night, lying beside Caleb with Hope asleep in her cradle nearby, Lin Mei thought about the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become. Thought about the lessons she'd learned through fire and pain and stubborn refusal to break. Strength wasn't about being perfect. Wasn't about never feeling fear or doubt or exhaustion. Strength was choosing to stand up every time the world knocked you down. Was finding your voice when everyone expected silence. Was building something worth keeping despite people telling you that you didn't deserve it. She'd been invisible for most of her life. Had been told in 1,000 ways, big and small, that she didn't matter. That her existence was an inconvenience at best, a mistake at worst. But she'd proven them all wrong, had taken that invisibility and transformed it into strength, had learned that being overlooked meant people underestimated you, and underestimation could be a weapon if you knew how to use it. The girl who'd been slapped in her father's parlor was gone. The woman who'd replaced her had calloused hands and a backbone of steel, had survived everything thrown at her and built a life that mattered, had created family from strangers and turned a marriage of convenience into something real and valuable. And most importantly, she'd learned that worth wasn't something given by others. It was something you claimed for yourself, one hard choice at a time. One moment of courage stacked on another until you'd built something unshakable. Lin Mei closed her eyes, listening to the sounds of her family sleeping, the wind moving through the ranch, the distant lowing of cattle. This was peace. This was victory. Not because everything was perfect, but because she'd fought for this life and won it through sheer determination. She'd been nothing in her father's house. But here, in this place she'd earned with blood and tears and relentless work, she was everything. Wife, mother, partner, leader, voice of reason. Backbone of an operation that employed dozens and fed hundreds. The world that had once dismissed her as worthless now had no choice but to see her, to acknowledge her, to respect her. And for the girl who'd spent 18 years being invisible, that was the sweetest victory of all. Lin Mei Turner had arrived at this ranch with nothing but calloused hands and desperate courage. She'd leave it someday as a legend. The Chinese wife who'd saved Turner Ranch, who'd proven that strength came in unexpected forms, who'd taught everyone who'd tried to break her that some people are simply unbreakable. That was her legacy. That was her truth. And it was more than enough.